Going live.
Well, you picked the game. I think we can go.
Yeah, I think we've got some great days ahead of us.
Yeah.
I know we are going to certainly be recognizing what's happening here with the Hall of Fame. But Tex Schramm, who started that ring, said, Jerry, keep it kind of limited with people. But make sure it wasn't just about the plays they made. Make sure they contributed to the story of the franchise. That's kind of hard to not recognize this contribution to the story of the franchise.
No doubt. So are we making an announcement here?
Well, we can be. If we can, I don't know how we're going to upstage.
No, yeah, you can. Go ahead. Make the announcement.
We'll be in the Ring of Honor.
There we go.
Jerry,
All right. Love it.
yes.
You heard it here.
And we'll be there. While I'm alive. Are you going to be able to make it through this Hall of Fame ceremony?
Oh, look, Troy, you know.
Did you sick when you were up there?
I don't think so.
You're just very sniffly.
Am I? Yeah, it's early AM, I guess. Different allergies.
We're live in a minute.
All right. Hot steaming deal.
You are listening to Miller and Moulton, exclusively on the Florida Sports Network. And now here's Mark Miller and David Moulton.
Top of the morning to you. Happy Monday. Happy August. How the heck are you, Miller and Moulton? Thanks so much for being with us here on the Florida Sports Network, floridasportsnetwork.com. Hope you had a great weekend. Thanks for starting your week off with us. Top of the morning to you, Mark. How are you?
I'm doing well, David. Good weekend. You know, the daughter had her first sleepover at someone's house, so the wife and I got a date night. Pretty great weekend in the Miller household.
Whoa. That is a big deal. Was this an impromptu thing? Was it a planned thing?
It was planned. She's friends with a couple of girls who are twins, so each of them had a friend over. And we're friends with the parents, so it worked out great. We got a date night out of the deal. Worked out perfectly.
Now, I know originally you had plans and the concert got canceled.
Yeah, that's so, plan B was take the wife out. She wasn't coming to the concert with me.
Really?
No, I was going with a friend of mine. Wife had no desire to go whatsoever.
Good.
You get to that point in your relationship where it's like you don't have to do all these things together that you both don't like. If I really like a band, there is no need for her to come along and take up concert tickets have become expensive. This just in. So there's no sense to spend $1.50 for someone to sit there and not enjoy it when you could easily give that ticket to someone who will really enjoy it. Right. And that way, two of us got equally bummed out when the Steely Dan concert got canceled on Saturday night.
Well, I'm glad you had a good time. Hope Maddie did as well.
Oh, she was a rock star. She's all in. She's ready to move out of the house. Start college next week, hopefully.
I'm guessing you both had your phones ready just in case, the phone rang saying, hey, she's not doing well. Pick her up.
Ironically, the wife didn't. We're at dinner and my, the hip vibrated there. And I said, let me grab this just to make sure. And she goes, what? I go, well, our kid is spending the night somewhere. She's like, oh, yeah, that's right. Like,
wow.
Happened to you in 30 minutes.
I was going to say she's a little more ready for her to go to college than you are, it seems. Okay. Miller and Moulton on this Monday. I'm final day in Jersey and flying back tonight, and I'm going to get a chance to spend the day with Mom before I fly back, so that's always good.
But you took in Live Tour Golf over the weekend.
I did. There was no reason for me to be here. The whatever work that they said that they maybe, hey, if you could do this or you could, no. But have to admit, the golf was better than I thought it would be. The broadcast was better than I thought it would be. Nobody watched it. It's on YouTube and Facebook and whatever. I mean, I think it did 800,000 views or something like that. But I have to admit the product's better than it's being depicted. Put it that way. I mean, Mark, I wonder if this thing can make it to next year in terms of whatever fans there are willing to give it a shot, because I mean, they are, and in some cases deservedly so. They're just getting, a lot of bad press, but they are getting a lot of press. And so the old adage of there's no such thing as bad publicity, in a way, I think LIV Golf is going to put that to a test, Mark, because I got to be honest, they're getting more press than the PGA Tour that went straight up against it.
And what's going to be fascinating to me, David, is that I'm with you, is that I don't know going forward if they can cross that bridge. Because as I've told you, I'm fascinated by the story. I'm not all that interested in watching the golf. I watched the Rocket Mortgage yesterday. I watched Tony Finau win for the second consecutive week on the PGA Tour. I have the ability to put YouTube on my TV. I didn't. The tournaments don't do anything for me. The no-cut thing does nothing for me. The team thing does nothing for me. Doesn't mean I don't like to watch good golf. But it's not readily available yet.
It's not
easy to get to.
No question.
So it will be interesting to see how this is going forward, because you're right. It's getting a ton of press, but none of it's really about the golf.
No, not yet. Although, Hendrik Stenson winning, is ironic, to say the least. A week and a half ago, he was a European Ryder Cup captain, and now he's not, but he actually went out. And I believe they've made a mistake this year. All right. The word is that, they could have used some of the money that they're paying out to everyone and everything, and they could have bought the airtime. And that these tournaments could be on American television or Sky TV Sports or whatever the case may be. But that their rationale is that if we buy the time, we'll never get them to pay for our product. And so they're willing to eat it for a year, hoping that a deal is coming of some kind next year and the years beyond. We'll see if they're right. But like yesterday would have been an interesting side by side. Because, yes, Tony Finau won back-to-back the whole deal, and there were a couple of other, Cantlay was on the leaderboard and the whole deal. But the LIV had a leaderboard. I mean, and it had a named leaderboard that was actually bigger, and I could even argue better, okay, for much of the day than what was going on in the Rocket Mortgage. But nobody could watch it unless they went out of their way to watch it. I think yesterday would have been interesting. I mean, it had Stenson, it had Dustin Johnson, it had Sergio, it had Westwood, it had Poulter, it had Gooch, it had Matthew Wolff. I mean, literally, Mark, they were the top 7 midway through the round yesterday. And you are right. I am also curious if they can figure out a way for their golf to mean something besides cash. Whether it's world ranking points or whatever the case may be. The golf, they have to create some tension with the golf. And I will say this, believe it or not, Mark, there was a point yesterday where Stenson birdied and DJ bogeyed, and Stenson had a 5-shot lead over 4 guys. And I'm thinking, well, this is going to be entertaining. But believe it or not, the team golf concept for the next hour really worked. Okay, because one group had a 6-shot lead, but with 3 guys' scores counting, all of a sudden in 15 minutes time, it was down to 1. And during when Stenson had the lead that was, this isn't much of a tournament, the team golf tournament was actually interesting, and every shot from 3 different guys was counting all at once. It kind of carried the coverage. And so I'm with you. At first, I'm like, what in the world is this whole team golf thing? Yesterday, for the first time, it showed me anyway. Oh, okay. This is how this could work. This isn't bad. All right.
Yeah, I think for those that like to gamble, there's that element of it that'll be there because both tournaments had, Stenson leading significantly, Finau leading significantly. It didn't look like it was going to be much of a tournament for the leader standpoint, only for a couple of times. So you're right that the team adds another element. I think it adds the gambling element in an incredible way, David.
They're going to have to alter their coverage, I think. They show far more golf than the other networks do. And so I'm wondering how they're going to, when the day comes, to work in the gambling. When they show, let's just say in a 3-minute time, they'll show 20 shots and the other networks are showing 6. I'm trying to figure out which broadcast works better for gambling, if you know what I mean. But that's for another day. And speaking of golf, I believe this coming weekend will be Nick Faldo's final tournament, broadcasting golf. So Nick Faldo has been on the public scene in golf for a good 35 years as player and announcer. This final week, I believe, is it for Nick as a broadcaster. So just wrapping up our golf talk with that.
There you go. Yesterday, obviously, ends up being dominated by the passing of Bill Russell, the greatest champion of our lifetimes. High school, college, Olympic, pro. It's staggering the amount of winning that man did.
Bill Russell and Rocket Richard had 11 titles as a player, more than, everybody else. The great Bob Ryan had a quote yesterday about Russell in which he said, quote, in his final 14 years as a basketball player, Bill Russell's teams had 21 winner-take-all games, 9 in the NCAA tournament, an Olympic gold medal game, 10 game sevens, and 1 deciding game 5. And in those 21 games, Bill Russell's teams won 21.
That's just staggering. It's just staggering. It just stops you dead in your tracks and you go, holy blank.
I heard Michael Wilbon say this, but you can't have a Mount Rushmore of basketball without Bill Russell.
It's difficult to disagree. We're all into the individual today. Bill Russell represented a very different era and what it is that we valued. We valued winning. We valued team. We don't value that as much anymore. We glorify the individual. We don't glorify the team as much. In fact, we grow to quickly resent the team for winning nowadays.
Ooh, resent the team for winning. I think we get some of that, but I think there are some that still love it, but it's a hell of an interesting take. But we do get bored with teams quickly. I don't disagree with you, David.
I mean, we grew tired of the Spurs. We, grew tired of the Patriots. How many people have grown tired of Alabama? I mean, how many people have even turned now on the Warriors for 4 out of 6?
Well, they turned on them already. This year may have brought them back a little bit. They had already turned on him when KD was there. So you're right. You and I are the ones that still love the winning and the dynasties and the Patriots and the Bamas of the world for their greatness. But we find ourselves on our own hill more times than not with that.
And also Bill Russell, pioneer, not just for his work in the civil rights movement, but his final 2 years in the NBA, he was player and head coach of the Boston Celtics and led them to back-to-back championships. First black head coach in any of our major sports, Bill Russell.
Miller and Moulton, so happy you could join us on a Monday morning. We have made it to August, David. Another month. The numbers on the other side, the starting 5, about 23 minutes away right here on Miller and Moulton on the Florida Sports Network. Golfers, are you bored of the same old driving range warm-up routine that's not getting you the results that you want on the course? Power up your golf swing by adding resistance bands to your range sessions with the Orange Whip Golf's Power Strap Kit. Featuring band attachments to your feet and hips, Power Strap resistance training will boost clubhead speed, increase power, improve flexibility, all with just a few swings. Buy a Power Strap Kit today. Go to orangewhipgolf.com and use code Miller10 to receive an additional 10% off the already great price of $119.
David Moulton for Napa Auto Parts, and Napa Filters. Insist on Napa Filters for your vehicles, or if you're a do-it-yourselfer, only buy Napa Filters. Napa has a filter for almost anything on earth that moves, whether it's motorcycles, foreign and domestic cars, vans, SUVs, earth-moving equipment. You get the idea. Napa Auto Parts, Napa Filters. Insist on them for your vehicles, or if you're do-it-yourselfer, only buy Napa Filters. We did this before the pandemic, and now we're doing it again. The Miller and Moulton Fantasy Football Summit.
We want you to win your fantasy football league, so we've recruited an expert just for you.
Dr. Roto, who you hear regularly Thursdays on Miller and Moulton during the season, will give you his tips, advice, and insight just days before your fantasy draft.
In addition to that, you'll get food and drink and all of your questions answered. You'll leave the Miller and Moulton Fantasy Football Summit with the Dr. Roto cheat sheet so that you can draft a great team and follow his award-winning insight throughout the season.
So if you want to win, we'll see you August 11th, Shoeless Joe's Sports Cafe for dinner, drinks, and the doctor. Dr. Roto, that is.
Go to floridasportsnetwork.com to sign up today. That's floridasportsnetwork.com for the Fantasy Football Summit.
Thursday, August 11th, 7 o'clock, Shoeless Joe's Sports Cafe.
You are listening to Miller and Moulton on the Florida Sports Network.
Yeah, I thought the same thing, Mac. I thought the same thing. Mark, they listed championships as for players.
Mm-hmm.
Yogi Berra, Sam Jones, Jean Beliveau, and Ryan Courvoisier with 10 each. DiMaggio and Claude Prevost with 9. Okay. Tommy Heinsohn, Casey Jones, Satch Sanders, John Havlicek, Red Kelly, Jacques Lemaire with 8. And I guess I said Rocket Richard. I got the brothers confused. Henry Richard had 11. Maurice had 8.
Is there any chance we get this before the show's over today, or you think it's going to be noontime before the Deshaun thing comes out?
I don't think we'll be so lucky.
Ten seconds.
Thanks for listening. And now, more of Miller and Moulton on the Florida Sports Network.
21 minutes past the hour. Miller and Moulton, the Florida Sports Network, floridasportsnetwork.com. Thanks so much for being with us. Mark mentioned it before we went to break. The magic numbers, which did not win us the Mega Billions. 3, 10, 26, 31, 38. Those are our magic numbers on this day. 3 days away from the Hall of Fame game, the Raiders and the Jags. 10 days away from the Miller and Moulton Fantasy Football Summit. Go to floridasportsnetwork.com and sign up. It's a room that seats 50 comfortably, and that's it. We're not going to squeeze in anymore. Some want to squeeze in up to 60. I want to keep it at 50. I want to keep this as non-profitable as possible.
Oh, I'm pretty sure. By the way, I'm pretty sure. Just a quick announcement on that because David set this up and didn't really take into account accounting, and the company we used to set up the billing. I'm pretty sure that we're going to lose money on this event, and I am fired up about it. I am 99% sure that one of us is going to have to come off our hip for finishing the bill on this thing. I'm positive, and I am ecstatically fired up about this event we're doing for you. We're working for you in your corner, now.
I believe we have $2.68 per person to play with right now.
It's going to be really close then, because goes right to the company that's the Eventbrite. That's all the tickets are going.
No. That's with them taking their thing. I think we've got about $2.68 per person to play with here. It's tight. It's a tight fit, no doubt. 26 days away from week 0. Yes, week 0. College football at the end of this month. Thank you very much. 31 days away from week 1. 38 days away from Bills and Rams at SoFi. Huh? In the 30s. Come on, you can do this. Miller and Moulton here on the Florida Sports Network. So word came out late yesterday that Judge Robinson, better late than never, made her decision. And she's going to release it today about Deshaun Watson.
So here's to you, Mrs. Robinson.
Nice. Well done there. Well done there. Now I'll be singing that in my head for most of the rest of the show. But a couple of things. So she lets everybody know, and they immediately call all their sources and, hey, she's deciding tomorrow. So Deshaun Watson and the NFLPA send out a statement late last night. Did you see it?
Yes. Yeah, basically wanting there to be no appeals.
Yeah, they said, listen, whatever Mrs. Robinson decides, and then they proceed to lay out the laborious process and how thorough it has been. And therefore, there is really no need for there to be any appeal. We are willing to live by the decision, whatever it may be, even if we don't like it. And we urge the NFL to do the same.
That is wonderful PR. I have to hand it to them for getting out in front and trying to put some positive PR in front of this, because all this really is saying is the appeal goes to Roger Goodell.
Correct.
So what we're hoping for is that you don't appeal it and make your own decision.
Right. And make this, what we've gone through, a fraud.
No comments from the NFL on what they're going to do with appeals.
However,
we're going to have one.
However, there are 2 additional pieces of news which I think we'll all find interesting. First off, remember, 2 months ago, that Watson settled 20 of the 24 civil suits filed against him? So there were 4 civil suits that are scheduled to go to trial in early 2023. Remember, that's why the NFL, one of the reasons that they claim they want this to be indefinite, because if something comes out in those trials, they want to be able to hand down additional punishment. Well, of the 4 remaining civil suits, Mark, Deshaun yesterday settled 3 of them. There's 1 civil suit remaining against Deshaun Watson. 1. That's number 1. All right. Number 2, apparently Deshaun Watson and the NFL have been negotiating. Here's how close they got. Watson was willing to accept the suspension of between 6 to 8 games. The NFL came off of a year and came all the way down to 12 games and an $8 million fine. Now, remember, Watson's only making, quote unquote, $1 million this year in salary. That's because he was given a $45 million signing bonus. So I find that interesting, Mark, that in theory, they were 4 games and $8 million apart on the suspension. If I was Watson, I would have looked at the NFL and said, make it 8 and $8 million and you got a deal. I mean, I can come off the hip for the money right now. So,
boy, that fine's unprecedented, isn't it?
Yep.
I mean, that's the part of this that blew my mind is the dollar amount in a suspension. I get that it's monopoly money, but they're jumping from 6-digit fines to big 7-digit fines, and that is alarming to me. If I'm part of the NFLPA, those numbers are alarming.
Yeah, and if I'm Watson, this is to me is all about how many games I'm going to miss. I got a $45 million check sitting in the account. How much of it have I already spent? I'm pretty sure I got $8 million left. I'm pretty sure I got enough money to make it to next year when I start earning $46 million fully guaranteed per.
I agree. But I can't think the union would be backing that. I think the union would fight that fine. I think that you kind of have them at a crossroads between the two sides. And I don't think any player would be willingly thinking the way you are and saying, here's $8 million.
So if you were Watson and I was the NFL, and my offer's 12 games, $8 million, and in the back of your head, you're like, I'm willing to go to 8 games. Your counter offer to me would not have been 8 games, $8 million?
No, the money would have been far less.
Okay.
Far less. And I get that they're making all kinds of money, but I mean, you're talking about an $8 million fine. That's unprecedented.
Yes, it is. I don't know owners have been fined $1 million.
What did Dan Snyder get fined? That they were talking about all the huge fine. It was less than $8 million.
Yes.
And they made that sound like it's the biggest fine that's ever been levied in the history of the world of sport. And they're trying to do it to a player? No way. No way.
But you got to remember the reason they're asking for so much money is because of how the Browns basically, rigged the contract where it's $45 million up front and it's $1 million salary. So if you look at it big picture, he's making $46 million this year and he's only being penalized $8 for being suspended for half a season, say. In theory, most everyone else would have lost $23 million. Still not persuasive, huh?
I signed the contract. I did. I didn't expect there to be fines in the $8 million range. That's that number is staggering to me. I can't get past that, David. And I would have trouble in the meetings getting past that type of number. The starting 5 is on the other side right here on the Florida Sports Network.
Bring your big mouth to John Smith Subs and indulge in their overstuffed subs with the freshest quality ingredients. Enjoy our famous steak bomb with perfectly grilled marinated sirloin steak topped with provolone cheese, grilled onions, peppers, mushrooms, crispy bacon, juicy tomatoes, and creamy mayo. Boom! Made-to-order crispy fries can be paired with the Gator, the Cuban, the Chicken Bomb, or the Italian. Love local. Eat delicious with John Smith Subs. Find a John Smith Subs location near you today.
David Moulton for Napa, Napa Auto Parts, and Napa Filters. Insist on Napa filters for your vehicles, or if you're a do-it-yourselfer, only buy Napa filters. Napa has a filter for almost anything on earth that moves, whether it's motorcycles, foreign and domestic cars, vans, SUVs, earth-moving equipment. You get the idea. Napa Auto Parts, Napa filters. Insist on them for your vehicles, or if you're do-it-yourselfer, only buy Napa filters.
Golfers, are you bored of the same old driving range warm-up routine that's not getting you the results that you want on the course? Power up your golf swing by adding resistance bands to your range sessions with the Orange Whip Golf's Power Strap Kit. Featuring band attachments to your feet and hips, Power Strap resistance training will boost clubhead speed, increase power, improve flexibility, all with just a few swings. Buy a Power Strap Kit today. Go to orangewhipgolf.com and use code Miller10 to receive an additional 10% off the already great price of $119. Mark Miller for SWFL Golf Carts, or online, flgolfcarts.com. If you're looking for a golf cart, an e-bike, or an e-motorcycle, go visit Alex and the gang at SWFL Golf Carts. flgolfcarts.com online. Check out their whole inventory. If you're looking for a custom cart, they can take care of you. 2-seater, 4-seater, 6-seater, they've got you covered. E-bikes, nobody better for value and service. E-motorcycles, check them out. Again, flgolfcarts.com. flgolfcarts.com.
You were listening to Miller and Moulton on the Florida Sports Network.
You want to go the Deshaun Watson suspension one last time? What's the suspension going to be? Or it's going to come out during the show for a poll question, so I don't know about that.
It'd be great if it comes out at 9:00. We could do the poll question, about the punishment.
Yeah. Well, that'll be tomorrow, so.
It's funny, sports. Could you imagine being Andy Baskin right now? And the only thing you're thinking is, could you hand down the fine either right before or early in the show?
Oh, yeah.
You don't want the sucker coming out at 3-4 o'clock.
What does the NFL do with the money that they fine players?
Supposedly it goes to charity. Now, for the longest time, the NFL's charity of choice was the United Way. I don't know if that's still the charity. I don't think it is. Yes, Steve, 46 divided by... It's funny. I don't know if they do 17 game checks or if they do 18 weeks, if you get paid on your bye week or not. But either way, it's 46 million divided by 17 or 18. So, yeah, 8 million is basically 3 game checks.
I know you guys are all saying it's a couple of game checks. It's $8 million.
It would be the second biggest fine in NFL history. I just looked it up.
What's the biggest?
Actually, Snyder in Washington got 10 million.
10 million.
Which was 9 million higher, I think, than...
That's an owner.
Well, technically it's a franchise, but yeah. The second biggest fine, the Broncos were fined just under 2 million.
So what's the largest player fine?
Jamal Lewis got 760,000.
Okay, 760,000. We just added a 0 to that.
Yep. Belichick.
That's why I think the union is fighting that hard. There's your precedent, David, that you don't want to get to if you're the union.
I understand, but he can look at the union and go, yeah, tough. You guys deal with this. I don't care. Because the other thing is, it would have been a negotiated deal. You know, this isn't Roger then coming in over the top. If you really think about it, it's pretty arrogant by Watson. How could he not think Goodell is going to just come over the top of whatever the judge says and just hand down a year? I mean,
Guys, I'm not at all arguing with any of you about the contract and all of those things. I am just merely saying that the union's not going to let an $8 million fine fly.
No.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
I'm not.
Mark.
I never approach this from Deshaun Watson's standpoint. I think David makes a really valid point. I'm telling you right now, the union is not going to allow a fine like that.
Mark's completely right. Mark's 100% right.
In DC, even though you're right with this contract and all that's the owners are pissed about that. I think the union's in a back room chuckling about that contract, if you want to know the truth.
Oh, a fully guaranteed contract?
Avoiding a fine, too? They're
just
slapping and high-fiving.
Greatest contract in NFL history.
You're listening to Miller and Moulton, exclusively on the Florida Sports Network.
22 minutes before the hour, top of the morning to you. Miller and Moulton, Florida Sports Network, floridasportsnetwork.com. Hope you had a great weekend, and thanks for starting your week, and for that matter, your month of August with us. 2 corrections. Is it PTI that does like errors and omissions?
Yes.
So I'm going to play Tony Reale here for a second on PTI. In the first segment, when we were discussing the passing of Bill Russell, I mentioned that he was tied with Maurice Rocket Richard for most titles as an athlete, as a player, not coach, with 11. Actually, it was Maurice Richard won 8 titles. His brother Henri was the one that won 11. And then we were discussing moments ago a proposed settlement between the NFL and Deshaun Watson. And the NFL's last offer to Watson was reportedly 12 games and $8 million. And Mark had said, well, that's the largest fine in NFL history. Yes and no. It's overwhelmingly would have been the largest fine a player has ever been fined. I mean, 10 times, Mark, the amount that any player's ever been fined. Jamal Lewis was fined $760,000 about 18 years ago when he pled guilty to federal drug charges. But technically, Snyder in Washington in the last year or so got fined $10 million as part of the settlement. But yeah, for a player, oh my goodness, it would take it to the stratosphere.
And the union will fight a fine like that till the nth. They have to. We're all into precedent on this case. An $8 million fine, precedent of that in the league for a player would be monumental. And the union's not going to allow that.
No, it would be historic. That's for sure. Usually the union's only in favor of it being historic in one way, not the other. Now it's time for
The Starting Five. 5 stories you need to know. It's the Starting 5 on Miller and Moulton. Here's number 1.
As we all know by now, Bill Russell passed away yesterday morning at the age of 88, regarded as the greatest winner in American team sports history. 11 NBA titles in 13 years with the Celtics, the last 2 as player coach. He won 2 NCAA championships at the University of San Francisco. The Dons won 55 consecutive games with Bill Russell at one point. He was also the leader of the 56 gold medal basketball team. And he was a trailblazer as the first black head coach and civil rights icon, was awarded the 2011 Presidential Medal of Freedom by President Obama. And a stat that we gave earlier in the show, provided by Bob Ryan, Bill Russell, in his last 14 years playing basketball, so that encompasses his entire NBA career and his final year in college and Olympics, he was in 21 winner-take-all games between the NCAA tournament, the gold medal game, 10 game sevens, and a deciding game 5. 21 winner-take-all games. Bill Russell's teams went 21-0.
That needs a little room to marinate when you say that. It really does. You did there are times for pauses and then are times for just to reflect on that. That is just staggering.
Legend has it, Russell's final game, it was in the old LA Forum. It was against the Lakers. It was a game 7. And the balloons were in the nets up in the rafters. And Russell came out in warm-ups and saw the balloons, went back in and told his team those balloons are never coming down. And Russell was described as borderline enraged by the sight of the balloons, and he held Wilt Chamberlain in that deciding game 7 to 8 points. The final game he ever played. Bill Russell, dead at the age of 88. NFL news, and there was a lot of it yesterday. Judge Robinson's going to hand down her Deshaun Watson decision today. Watson and the NFLPA said last night they will accept the decision without appeal. They're urging the NFL to do the same. This is where we insert the laugh track. Once again, we'll say it. They will accept the decision without appeal, urging the NFL to do the same. Watson also agreed yesterday to settle 3 of the 4 remaining civil lawsuits against him. So what was originally 24 civil suits is down to 1. Remember, part of the NFL saying they need an indefinite suspension is because of the civil suits that were expected to go to trial in early 2023. Well, right now, we're down to 1 suit. By the way, there were apparently, quietly, settlement talks between Watson and the league, but the closest the 2 sides got, Watson was willing to agree to a 6 to 8 game suspension. The NFL came down off of a 1-year suspension to 12 games, but an $8 million fine. The 2 sides last week reportedly then said, well, we'll take our shot with Judge Robinson. Remember, Roger Goodell, per the collective bargaining agreement, can appeal Judge Robinson's decision, and the appeal goes to
Raj.
Right. And somehow DeMaurice Smith still has his job as head of the NFLPA. Unbelievable. 49ers and Deebo Samuel, they agree to a contract extension. Remember, doesn't kick in this year, final year of his rookie deal. But beginning next year, Mark, he'll get 3 years, up to $73.5 million, which is $24.5 per year, which would put him a smidge ahead of DK Metcalf. However, Mark, his guaranteed money is $58.1 million. DK Metcalf's guaranteed money was $58.2 million. See what they did there?
I do.
Yes, that's important to agents and players. All these,
it most certainly is.
Right. One other NFL note over the weekend: Ryan Kerrigan retired after 11 years, 10 of them with Washington. Baseball yesterday. Rays lost 2 out of 3 to the Guardians over the weekend. Cleveland won yesterday 5-3. McClanahan, roughest outing of the year, gave up 5 runs in less than 5 innings. And for what it's worth, Mark, we said it, big series. If Tampa won 2 of 3, they'd be 3.5 ahead of the Guardians for the final wild card spot. Instead, they're 1.5 ahead of Cleveland, 2.5 ahead of the White Sox, 3 ahead of the Orioles, 3.5 ahead of the Red Sox for the final playoff berth in the American League. Toronto leads the wild card chase comfortably now. They won 2 of 3 from Detroit over the weekend. 4 won the final yesterday. Houston took 3 of 4 from Seattle. They won yesterday 3-2 and 10. The Astros lead in the West is 12. Boston avoided the sweep at the hands of the Brewers, beating Milwaukee 7-2. Red Sox are 500. White Sox, 4-1 winners over Oakland. They are 2 games back of the Twins, 2.5 back of the Rays. Cincinnati took 2 of 3 from the Orioles. Ouch. 3-2 Reds over the O's. Padres beat the Twins 3-2. Minnesota's lead in the Central marks down to a game over Cleveland, 2 over the White Sox. So the Guardians and White Sox both are closer to the Twins than they are the Rays for the wild card. Royals with 3 in the 9th rallied to beat the Yankees 8-6. Mets swept the Marlins. They've won 6 in a row. 9-3 was the final yesterday. Marlins are 8 games below 500. Remember a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, we said, listen, they got all these games against the Reds and the Pirates. They got a series at home against the Mets, and it comes right after the Mets play the Yankees. Here's the spot in the schedule. The Marlins were like 4 games below 500, 4 behind the Phillies for a playoff spot. Yeah, they're 8 below 500, and they're 8 games out of the playoffs. They should sell.
They definitely should sell. It's really disappointing because they have, as you've mentioned all year long, David, they have the pitching to get it done, but they can't hit for squat.
And to the Mets' credit, the last 2 days, they beat Pablo Lopez yesterday, and they beat Alcantara on Saturday. Atlanta with 1 in the 9th beat Arizona 1-0. They swept the Diamondbacks. They're 3 behind the Mets, 4 in the loss column. Mets and Braves, by the way, beginning Thursday, play a 5-game series in New York. 5 games in 4 days. Mets and Braves beginning Thursday. Phillies swept the Pirates. They won 5 in a row. 8-2 was the final. Right now, the Phillies hold down the final wild card spot by a game over the Cardinals, who shut out Washington 8-0. Cardinals 1 back of Philly for the wild card, but they're 3 back of Milwaukee for the division lead. And the Cardinals are the team along with the Padres, but it's more Cardinals than even Padres for Juan Soto.
Phillies Pirates, that's the poop series. You know, you got the
right.
P's.
I know the P and the O and the right. Yep. Okay. But Cardinals, Padres for Soto and or Ohtani, who the Angels have even acknowledged we're taking phone calls on. Trade deadline is 6:00 tomorrow. 6:00 tomorrow. So about 35 hours left in the trade deadline.
Just don't let the Dodgers get them. I know, it's down to 3 teams, and the Dodgers appear to be third. Just don't let them sneak in and do this. Just for all of us, okay?
Texas 5-2 over the Angels. Dodgers have a 12-game lead in the West. They beat Colorado 7-3. And Rodon, who's on the trade market through 7 shutout innings for the Giants and a 4-0 win over the Cubs. Cubs don't play today, so any and all Cubs who are traded, they played their last game with the Cubs yesterday. In golf, Tony Finau went back-to-back. Tony had finished, second 10 times since he had last won before 8 days ago? And he's now won back-to-back. Only his 3rd and 4th career wins for a guy who's ranked in the top 15 in the world. But he wins the Rocket Mortgage by 5 at 26 under par. They got to figure out a way to toughen that course up a little bit.
Wow.
Henrik Stenson channeled his anger about being fired as Ryder Cup captain to win the LIV event in Bedminster. He wins $4 million for first, and then by being on the second place team, the four guys split $1.5 million, so he makes another $375,000. So Stenson in 3 days makes just under $4.4 million. His best year on the PGA Tour, he won $6.3 million. His best year on the European Tour, he won like 5.3 million pounds. He nearly equaled both in 3 days in Jersey. And he didn't even have to go to the casino. Tyler Reddick won for the second time in July. This is a fascinating case, Mark, because Reddick has essentially fired himself from Richard Childress Racing. But it's not for another year and a half. He's under contract for the rest of this year and all of next year. And as soon as he fired himself, he's gone out and won twice. Childress is still furious with him. He'll barely appear in the victory photos with him. He's like completely on the other side of him. They did the whole ceremony, kiss the bricks thing. Childress was like on the total other side of Reddick. He can't say a nice thing. He said, yeah, he's on the team. Ross Chastain originally finished second. The only problem was, they were 4 wide. You're not supposed to be 4 wide on a road course. So Chastain got kicked out, and he ended up going down a road that you're not supposed to go down. And then he comes back onto the track, and he's in the lead. It was like the scene out of a movie. Now, eventually, Reddick passed him and won, but they didn't give Chastain the second place finish. They said, yeah, Ross, you can't use that road. So you go back to 27th. You're the last guy in the lead lap. And by the way, the Cowboys were valued at $7.64 billion over the weekend. The Yankees at $7 billion. And that was
the Starting Five every weekday morning at this time on Miller and Moulton.
Oh, we got to come up with a poll question. I mean, or do we? But we'll try to come up with a poll question.
We can have a short-lived Deshaun Watson one. It can last between now and when Judge Robinson rules.
And that should be earlier this morning, maybe before the show is over. Matt Baker will join us next hour to talk some Florida Gators as well. Miller and Moulton, we thank you for listening right here on the Florida Sports Network.
Bring your big mouth to John Smith Subs and indulge in their overstuffed subs with the freshest quality ingredients. Enjoy our famous steak bomb with perfectly grilled marinated sirloin steak topped with provolone cheese, grilled onions, peppers, mushrooms, crispy bacon, juicy tomatoes, and creamy mayo. Boom! Made-to-order crispy fries can be paired with the Gator, the Cuban, the chicken bomb, or the Italian. Love local. Eat delicious with John Smith Subs. Find a John Smith Subs location near you today.
Golfers, are you bored of the same old driving range warm-up routine that's not getting you the results that you want on the course? Power up your golf swing by adding resistance bands to your range sessions with the Orange Whip Golf's Power Strap Kit. Featuring band attachments to your feet and hips, Power Strap resistance training will boost clubhead speed, increase power, improve flexibility, all with just a few swings. Buy a Power Strap Kit today. Go to orangewhipgolf.com and use code Miller10 to receive an additional 10% off the already great price of $119.
We did this before the pandemic, and now we're doing it again. The Miller and Moulton Fantasy Football Summit.
We want you to win your fantasy football league, so we've recruited an expert just for you.
Dr. Roto, who you hear regularly Thursdays on Miller and Moulton during the season, will give you his tips, advice, and insight just days before your fantasy draft.
In addition to that, you'll get food and drink and all of your questions answered. You'll leave the Miller and Moulton Fantasy Football Summit with the Dr. Roto cheat sheet so that you can draft a great team and follow his award-winning insight throughout the season.
So if you want to win, we'll see you August 11th, Shoeless Joe's Sports Cafe for dinner, drinks, and the doctor. Dr. Roto, that is.
Go to floridasportsnetwork.com to sign up today. That's floridasportsnetwork.com for the Fantasy Football Summit.
Thursday, August 11th, 7 o'clock, Shoeless Joe's Sports Cafe. David Moulton for Napa, Napa Auto Parts, and Napa Filters. Insist on Napa filters for your vehicles, or if you're a do-it-yourselfer, only buy Napa filters. Napa has a filter for almost anything on earth. that moves, whether it's motorcycles, foreign and domestic cars, vans, SUVs, earth-moving equipment. You get the idea. Napa Auto Parts, Napa filters. Insist on them for your vehicles, or if you're a do-it-yourselfer, only buy Napa filters.
Golfers, are you bored of the same old driving range warm-up routine that's not getting you the results that you want on the course? Power up your golf swing by adding resistance bands to your range sessions with the Orange Whip Golf's Power Strap Kit. Featuring band attachments to your feet and hips, Power Strap resistance training will boost club head speed, increase power, improve flexibility, all with just a few swings. Buy a Power Strap Kit today. Go to orangewhipgolf.com and use code Miller10 to receive an additional 10% off the already great price of $119. You are listening to Miller and Moulton on the Florida Sports Network.
In Jersey, Brown.
Because they're already going to win, DC. They're already the best damn team. I would rather they don't get Soto.
Plus, they're not a dynasty. Close.
I would much rather see him go to the Cardinals or the Padres out of those three teams.
I'm in Jersey. 2 reasons. Saw my mom for a little bit, and we'll see her after the show. But actually used the LIV tour. I had done some research for them, and so I finagled a trip out of them. So I did a little bit of work for them while I was here. Not much. Yeah, we made the point, God, 4 or 6 weeks ago, we were talking about Judge and, would people try to find a way to put an asterisk next to his home run total and basically say steroid free and celebrate it. But, the record's 73. And here's the other problem. Technically, Bonds never failed the test. And he even won a federal trial.
Wow, they republished an article in SI from the May 10th, 1999 issue that Frank DeFord did on Russell. That'll be worth reading later.
Well, that's ironic. It's the greatest team sport athlete in U.S. professional sports history and arguably the greatest sports writer.
Right. This was in the 60th anniversary republishing. It was one of the 60 best stories to ever run in the magazine, they say.
Yeah, RCB, we talked about that, how it's not nearly as crazy as it sounds, the Rays going after Soto. First off, his salary for the rest of this year is $17 million. Prorated, that's down to about $6 million. Number one. And to be honest with you, they could even say to the Nats, hey, you give us $6 million. And then he's arbitration eligible next year. He'll make between 23 and 25, they figure. Well, Kiermaier and Zunino combined were making 19. They're both likely not back. So you spend $5 million more than what you're currently spending, and you have Juan Soto for next year. And then the following year, he'll make 30. So you got to come up with another $6 million.
You are listening to Miller and Moulton, exclusively on the Florida Sports Network. And now here's Mark Miller and David Moulton.
Hour 2 of Miller and Moulton on this Monday, first day of August. Just like that. 3 days away from the Hall of Fame game, 10 days away from the Miller and Moulton Fantasy Football Summit. Go to floridasportsnetwork.com and sign up. It's in Fort Myers. It's at Shoeless Joe's Sports Cafe, which is part of the Crown Plaza Hotel in the Bell Tower Shops. And we'll feed you and everything. And you get Dr. Roto's Fantasy Football Wisdom, one of the top 20 fantasy guys in the country. Hosts a show regularly on the Sirius Fantasy Channel, and you get his wisdom. And if you don't take it all in, he's going to put it down on paper and hand you a cheat sheet. Say, here, your drafts in the next week to 10 days. Follow this. You'll win.
I had to laugh. I saw it was either a tweet or a TikTok or something along the lines of that, but of a video of someone playing We Are the Champions. And in their living room, hoisting the banner that they had raised for their fantasy football championship up over the steps to the top of the thing. And I got a kick out of it because, you know, the line underneath it was, is this the worst thing ever, or are we just upset that we didn't come up with it first? And the answer to that's both. But, you know, people want to win. And people invest a lot of time and money in fantasy. So if you want to hoist the banner, show up a week from Thursday for our fantasy football summit.
In fact, maybe before the summit begins, we'll play We Are the Champions in honor of all of you that have arrived because, well, that will be your fate. But that's 10 days away. We're 26 days away from the college football season kicking off, if week 0 counts in your world.
It counts, David.
Okay. All right.
I know it doesn't count for much, but Scott Frost will tell you that it counts, because if Nebraska loses that game, boy, oh boy, things are going to get ugly in Lincoln really quickly.
Nebraska, Northwestern, and Ireland to kick off the season, so to speak. The nightcap is Vandy at Hawaii on CBS Sports Network. To give everybody advance notice right now, when you've lost money earlier in the day and you need to get it back, gambling, CBS Sports Network is the place. I believe it's a 9:30 Eastern kick, I think. Maybe it's a 9:30 Central Time kick. I don't know, but CBS Sports Network, Vandy at Hawaii, week 0, 26 days away. It's 4 weeks from Thursday, 31 days away that the college season starts in earnest with the 5-day week 1 extravaganza. And it is 5 weeks from Thursday, 38 days away, when the Bills and Rams will get it on in SoFi to kick off the 2022 NFL season. Bill Russell's passing, we obviously did more than note it. We've talked a decent amount about it. If you want to chime in on text line, feel free to do so. If you want to chime in our Twitch chat room, we'll be more than happy to pass along any of the thoughts that you have on Bill Russell, and we will expound a little bit later in the show again as well. The Deshaun Watson, we are finally going to get a verdict as to how long his suspension will be. Well, hopefully. Judge Robinson will render her decision later today. Some reports say it's as early as the 9 o'clock hour. We'll see. But remember, the NFL can appeal, and they can appeal to themselves. So if she gives him 1 game, by the way, they can appeal. The only way the NFL cannot appeal is if she does not suspend him. If she suspends him for a game, the NFL can appeal and render whatever verdict they want. They can make it a year. So that's how crazy this is. And the Players Association agreed to this. It's in writing. Unbelievable.
At the end of the day, the Players Association doesn't worry about the small number of guys that are going to get suspended when it comes in terms with the amount of money that they can make for the rest of their players. I don't know if it's actually unbelievable. I understand your point, and at the end of the day, they've wanted to get rid of this, but the league has refused to get rid of it and gives other concessions in order for this clause to stay in their collective bargaining agreements.
Yeah, but I have to admit, I think the NFLPA has done a horrible job for the players. I mean, when you look at what the Baseball Association does for its players and the Basketball Association does for its players, far and away our most popular sport, far and away our biggest revenue producing sport, a sport that has far greater risk of injury and far shorter careers. And yet the NFL contracts are not fully guaranteed, and they almost all are in basketball and baseball. And quite frankly, if you look, they're not paid as much as they are in other sports also. I mean, so that's my point as to why I harp on the NFLPA, Mark, when it comes to this clause, because it's like, you know what? You're not getting these guys guaranteed contracts. Quite frankly, they should be getting a bigger piece of the pie than they are. They're barely getting 50% of the pie, and that's only the pie the owners are willing to share. That doesn't even count all the suite revenue and all the other revenue that you don't even get a piece of. So for goodness sakes, NFLPA, what the hell are you actually doing? Miller and Moulton could negotiate a contract this bad.
Do you think we'll see fully guaranteed contracts in the NFL in our lifetimes? Do you think they'll ever be able to get that through? Because it's one of the reasons I think that the league's so popular. I hate to say it, but I do think the idea that guys can get cut at the drop of a dime makes those that watch and pay attention love the sport even more.
Which, can we talk about that for a second? Can we just have a little sidebar here since we're talking about judges rendering verdicts?
Sure. But first off, do you agree with that premise that I say?
Unfortunately, I think I do, and it's disturbing. Once again, it makes no sense. Most of us work for the man. Why is it when it comes to sports, we support the man? I don't get it. All we do
You and I
is
have never been able to figure this one out, David.
we complain in our everyday lives about the conditions that we have to work under and how wouldn't it be nice we could make a little more money. Now less and less people are getting covered with health insurance. I mean, there's all sorts of topics we could bring up here that fall basically under the same umbrella about athletes and all the things that they negotiate for. And yet we're in favor of a player signing a 3-year contract, getting a cut 1 year into it, and not getting paid. I mean, think about that. Why would we be in favor of that?
Because, David, we love teams. We love our team. And if it's about our team winning, even if the cuts don't affect our team, at the end of the day, they could. And we're going to be in a similar spot with whatever team it is that we root for. And we can't do anything with our baseball teams. We really can't do anything with our basketball teams. And for those that care about hockey, well, we'll leave you guys on the side. But on our football team, we can see a guy get cut and it makes us feel better. Because we think it will help our team get to whatever heights that we're looking for. And I overused we there on purpose.
And I understand people now commenting, well, they're just being treated the way we can be treated. Yeah, but they're not being treated the way their counterparts in other sports are being treated. In the NBA, you get paid. In baseball, you get paid. So why in football? I mean, our most popular sport. Mark, let me ask you this, because I don't think we're going to see fully guaranteed contracts in our lifetimes. And you're 52, you'll be 53 later this month, and I'm 56. And so let's just say we each got another 20, 25 years in us. I don't think we'll see fully guaranteed because the players have shown that NFL players anyway, have shown they're not willing to go to the mat for it. They're not. Baseball players have shown they're willing to. NBA players have actually shown they're willing to. All right. They've had numerous work stoppages. Remember, we had a 50-game season they had to throw together in the late 90s when the league was thriving. NFL, that we have not gone to the mat in 35 years in the NFL. The players haven't. But how about this compromise? You signed me to a 3-year contract. You cut me after a year. You got to pay me, but it doesn't count against the cap. So it costs the owner the money, but it doesn't hurt your team. The fans that are in favor of cutting Moulton, it really doesn't matter if they cut Moulton. I mean, I stopped counting against the cap the minute they cut me. Now the team signed me to a deal, they got to pay me, but it doesn't count against the cap.
Fans would be fine with it. Fans would be perfectly fine with those type of contracts, David.
Right, and players would be fine with it too. The owners, of course, wouldn't be. But that would be my compromise if I was the NFLPA here. Come on, man. A contract's got to be worth. You sign a guy to a 3-year contract, the guy should be able to plan that over the next 3 years he's going to make X amount of money. I mean, that seems fair.
He does. It's what the guaranteed money is. It's not the full.
I know. But so what's interesting about the Deshaun Watson situation to me, and Mark, I don't know how you feel, is not whatever Judge Robinson's going to say today, because I actually think unless Judge Robinson says a year, what she says today is meaningless. The NFL is going to appeal, and this is going to drag into the season probably, and it's just going to be a complete soap opera. But that one, Deshaun Watson had 4 outstanding civil cases that were looming in early 2023. Well, he settled 3 of them over the weekend. He's got 1 civil suit that's out there, 1. And why did the NFL want an unlimited suspension? Because they wanted to be able to hear what was said at trial in early 2023 and then suspend him further. Well, Watson's now done just about everything he can to make sure there will be no trials in early 2023. And then apparently the 2 sides were negotiating a settlement. And Watson reportedly was willing to go as far as 6 to 8 games. The NFL came off their 1-year mark down to 12 games, but an $8 million fine. So 8 games on one side, 12 on the other with an $8 million fine. They couldn't bridge the difference. That's why we get a verdict later today.
That fine has an extra 0 on it, larger than the largest NFL fine ever issued. Under $800,000 is the largest fine ever issued to a player in the National Football League. They want to go $8 million. The union will go crazy over that figure. Crazy. Your point, David, is that Deshaun, it's a drop in the bucket with what he's making. And you're right, it's less than 3 game checks, but not to the union.
No, it's precedent for everybody else who ain't making $46 million.
Miller and Moulton. Matt Baker coming up in 23 minutes right here on the Florida Sports Network. We thank you for listening.
We did this before the pandemic, and now we're doing it again. The Miller and Moulton Fantasy Football Summit.
We want you to win your fantasy football league, so we've recruited an expert just for you.
Dr. Roto, who you hear regularly Thursdays on Miller and Moulton during the season, will give you his tips, advice, and insight just days before your fantasy draft.
In addition to that, you'll get food and drink and all of your questions answered. You'll leave the Miller and Moulton Fantasy Football Summit with the Dr. Roto cheat sheet so that you can draft a great team and follow his award-winning insight throughout the season.
So if you want to win, we'll see you August 11th, Shoeless Joe's Sports Cafe for dinner, drinks, and the doctor. Dr. Roto, that is.
Go to floridasportsnetwork.com to sign up today. That's floridasportsnetwork.com for the Fantasy Football Summit.
Thursday, August 11th, 7 o'clock, Shoeless Joe's Sports Cafe.
Golfers, are you bored of the same old driving range warm-up routine that's not getting you the results that you want on the course? Power up your golf swing by adding resistance bands to your range sessions with the Orange Whip Golf's Power Strap Kit. Featuring band attachments to your feet and hips, Power Strap resistance training will boost club head speed, increase power, improve flexibility, all with just a few swings. Buy a Power Strap Kit today. Go to orangewhipgolf.com and use code Miller10 to receive an additional 10% off the already great price of $119.
Mark Miller for SWFL Golf Carts or online, flgolfcarts.com. If you're looking for a golf cart, an e-bike, or an e-motorcycle, go visit Alex and the gang at SWFL Golf Carts. flgolfcarts.com online. Check out their whole inventory. If you're looking for a custom cart, they can take care of you. 2-seater, 4-seater, 6-seater, they've got you covered. E-bikes, nobody better for value and service. E-motorcycles, check them out. Again, flgolfcarts.com. flgolfcarts.com.
You were listening to Miller and Moulton on the Florida Sports Network.
So you come into Trump National at Bedminster, and it's a long, narrow road, and it goes almost entirely uphill. And I would say it's a good half mile, maybe 3/4 of a mile, until you then get to the top, and there's a semicircle and the clubhouses and all that. So if you walk about a half mile and you get to damn near the top of the hill, you look over to your left and you're near the 7th tee. Beautiful view of the countryside, beautiful view of like that half of the golf course. And all of a sudden you see this little pile of dirt and some white flowers. Turns out that's where Trump's first wife's buried.
He's got them all there, huh?
Well, he apparently has something from the state in which, and I will say, it's a rectangular piece of land in which you could line up 10 or 12, caskets, if you will. And apparently he has a clause that says he can have 10 family members buried on that property. And she's the first. So everyone's assuming that's where like he and a few other people are going to go.
Huh.
And it's not too far from the 7th tee. I mean, it's a little elevated. You can't, but when they do the tombstone, you'll be able to turn around from the 7th tee and you'll be able to see the tombstone. Turns out, one of the reasons he may have done so is apparently you get a hell of a tax break in New Jersey if you have, like, I don't know, a cemetery on your property. So, in one sense, it was touching. In the other sense, though, apparently it's also a tax break. But it was interesting to be walking to the course and look to the left and go, wow. So that's where he buried his first wife. I'll be damned.
You got any hotel hacks, David or Mark?
What do you mean?
Like, if you're staying at a hotel for, say, 2 or 3 nights, any hacks to make the experience better?
Yeah, a hooker.
Spoken like Jesse Pinkman.
I was going to say, does ordering Domino's count?
They bring it right up to the door.
Actually, they do.
Oh, yeah.
But I waited in the lobby for him.
Gotta play it safe. Mello in the Twitch chat goes, Mark stole my line.
Do we have who won the Friday poll?
Yeah, drums.
Really? Oh, man. I'm more of a flat guy myself.
You're listening to Miller and Moulton, exclusively on the Florida Sports Network.
21 minutes past the hour. Miller and Moulton, Florida Sports Network, floridasportsnetwork.com. Matt Baker, Tampa Bay Times. Quietly, although it started quietly, by the time July was done, it was not so quietly. Billy Napier and the Florida Gators had a pretty good month recruiting. Talked to Matt Baker. Gators have started practice and what Billy Napier is doing off the field. And throwing a little Knowles as well. He covers them both for the Tampa Bay Times. Matt Baker in a little more than 15 minutes.
We're still 0 for a poll question, David, just to keep things updated on the show. We had one on Friday. It was National Chicken Wing Day, so we had the drums versus flats, and drums win 56% to 44%. But struggling on a Monday.
Well, here's the thing. We all know the question we want to ask. We just want to wait until Judge Robinson's decision before we put it up there.
Right, which is going to come at 9 o'clock, apparently.
Okay. So, we could put the poll question up a couple hours late and just leave it up there for a couple days if we wanted. What'd you think of Judge Robinson's, suspension? Too much, too little, just right.
I have one, but it's risky because it's a baseball one.
Right, and here's the thing on these poll questions, guys. Just a little bit of Radio 101. We just got done doing a lengthy commercial break in which we can discuss these things, as opposed to coming on the air and throwing a flyer up for a poll question that you said yourself, well, it might not be that good.
Well, we bash on baseball talk all the time, but I mean,
where do
you want to see Juan Soto go? Because no one wants to see him on the Dodgers. So let's throw out that option. Whoever does is an a-hole, really. Padres or Cardinals?
Yeah, I don't think there's enough interest in wherever it is Juan Soto goes. But
I'd love to see him on the Padres, though.
What isn't interesting, and I don't even know if this is good enough, but, Judge has gone on such a tear here that now he's on a pace where he is in line to hit 65, 66 home runs. I mean, this is, he was borderline whether or not he was going to get to Roger Maris's 61. I mean, now he's already at 42? I mean, 42 before August. I mean, that's just ridiculous. And so, what we wonder and we wondered it 6 weeks ago, but what people are now beginning to ask is, hey, now, since everybody above 61 we regard as a cheater, are we going to recognize Aaron Judge if he hits 62 home runs as the single season, home run record? And my guess is people would like to, but won't.
I won't. I understand that it's steroid induced, but the record's not 61.
Right, it's 73.
And it's baseball's fault, not mine. This was a stop they could have made. They had every opportunity to clamp down on steroids and chose not to. So I'm not going to let them off on their own technicalities.
In theory, Mark, Rob Manfred could pull, I think it was Commissioner Landis. The asterisk did not get applied to Roger Maris until midway through the 61 season. He all of a sudden was on pace to tie or pass Babe Ruth. And the commissioner, who had been friends with Babe Ruth, came out and said, and by the way, at the same time, Mantle and Maris were side by side until Mantle got sick and hurt midway through September and didn't play basically the last 3 weeks of the year. But they were actually on pace, and everybody was rooting for Mantle to do it. He was a more popular guy, and they thought he would be the rightful heir to a record held by Babe Ruth. But the commissioner came out, and he didn't care who passed it. He put the asterisk there because he said, hey, they got a 162-game season. Ruth's season was 154. If you're going to be the home run king, you have to hit 61 homers in 154 games. Maris was at 59 after 154. And that's why he, as commissioner of baseball, attached the asterisk to it. I mean, in theory, Mark, Rob Manfred could come out in 2022 and go, I've been thinking about it, and everybody above 61 was a steroid pig. And Aaron Judge isn't. So if he breaks 61, you know what? I'm going to make him the single season home run king, and I'm going to attach whatever to the other guys. I can do it. I'm the commissioner. Look up your history.
And the fact of the matter is, it's going to be the Yankee record if he does it, and a lot will just be played into that. That's the way you bypass the whole thing. You become the all-time Yankee home run hitter, which already implies that you're the home run king. It just does.
And technically, he would have the American League record for most home runs in a season, because Bonds and McGuire and Sosa were all National Leaguers when they hit over 61 home runs. So there is that. But somehow none of us expect Rob Manfred to all of a sudden come in and go, these records are important, and integrity has always been important to Major League Baseball.
Because then you'd have to have that laugh track running right after that line was said.
Which is funnier. The NFL's not going to appeal Judge Robinson's decision, or Major League Baseball is going to step in the home run pursuit. Right.
Well, you've got something going there, David.
Maybe that's the poll question.
Maybe it is. Maybe it is. Figure out how to shorten that up a little bit, and you're on to something there. But we are waiting. Deshaun Watson, Judge Robinson expected to issue her ruling, or the ruling expected to be issued at 9 o'clock this morning. So reason to join us for the bonus hour. That airs just in the 239.
Can I ask you, what is the judgment that you would consider to be acceptable? That I won't have a problem with it if she gives him blank.
What side am I on? And I'm not being flippant here. I'm
asking you. How many games does she need to give him for you to go, I can live with that?
12. 8 to 12, but leaning more towards 12.
Okay.
I think it's going to be 8. I've had in my head all along that this is going to be an 8-game suspension.
I am begging for 6. For selfish reasons. I am so begging for 6. Because it means his home debut as a Cleveland Brown would be on Halloween night, Monday Night Football, against Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals. And I have always contended it will be at least 8. That the last thing the NFL said during their hearing process, I can't wait to see the transcripts, because I am convinced the last thing they said to Judge Robinson is, whatever you do, make sure he's not playing on Halloween night on Monday Night Football, because that game will get just a little bit of attention, and we don't want that. I want him playing at 1 o'clock on a Sunday, preferably in I don't know, Alaska. But I'll settle for, right, exactly. I'll settle for Jacksonville.
Right. Arizona would be fine too. Could he play the Arizona Cardinals?
Right.
So that's coming out at 9 this morning, or at least that's what they're telling us it's going to come out at. What do you think the suspension is going to be? Text the show. 21,000 is the number. If you've never done so before, you need to send the keyword in one time. That's FSN Radio to 21,000. How long do you think the suspension will be when we get the decision this morning? In about 90 minutes.
Someone asking in our Twitch chat room, during the suspension, can he practice with the team? No. He can do all training camp. Okay, but then the week before the opener, that's it. Any player that's suspended is done.
Miller and Moulton. We will talk Florida Gators football next with Matt Baker from the Tampa Bay Times on the Florida Sports Network.
Golfers, are you bored of the same old driving range warm-up routine that's not getting you the results that you want on the course? Power up your golf swing by adding resistance bands to your range session with the Orange Whip Golf's Power Strap Kit. Featuring band attachments to your feet and hips, Power Strap resistance training will boost clubhead speed, increase power, improve flexibility, all with just a few swings. Buy a Power Strap Kit today. Go to orangewhipgolf.com and use code Miller10 to receive an additional 10% off the already great price of $119.
We did this before the pandemic, and now we're doing it again. The Miller and Moulton Fantasy Football Summit.
We want you to win your fantasy football league, so we've recruited an expert just for you.
Dr. Roto, who you hear regularly Thursdays on Miller and Moulton during the season, will give you his tips, advice, and insight just days before your fantasy draft.
In addition to that, you'll get food and drink and all of your questions answered. You'll leave the Miller and Moulton Fantasy Football Summit with the Dr. Roto cheat sheet so that you can draft a great team and follow his award-winning insight throughout the season.
So if you want to win, we'll see you August 11th, Shoeless Joe's Sports Cafe for dinner, drinks, and the doctor. Dr. Roto, that is.
Go to floridasportsnetwork.com to sign up today. That's floridasportsnetwork.com for the Fantasy Football Summit.
Thursday, August 11th, 7 o'clock, Shoeless Joe's Sports Cafe.
Bring your big mouth to John Smith Subs and indulge in their overstuffed subs with the freshest quality ingredients. Enjoy our famous steak bomb with perfectly grilled marinated sirloin steak topped with provolone cheese, grilled onions, peppers, mushrooms, crispy bacon, juicy tomatoes, and creamy mayo. Boom! Made-to-order crispy fries can be paired with the Gator, the Cuban, the chicken bomb, or the Italian. Love local. Eat delicious with John Smith Subs. Find a John Smith Subs location near you today. You are listening to Miller and Moulton on the Florida Sports Network.
By the way, if he gets an 8-game suspension, do you know where his first game will be? At the Dolphins.
Isn't that a Monday night game?
No. It's a Sunday 1 o'clock game. Now, it might get moved.
You think they'd do that?
I think there's a chance. I think there's a chance NBC would want it, and the league would freak out. Because otherwise, CBS will get it as a 1 o'clock game.
So who's the new color commentator for the NBC? Because it's Tirico and who?
Collinsworth.
Yeah, Collinsworth.
Oh,
Didn't
he's
get
staying.
replaced. Yeah,
Oh.
he signed an extension.
Gotcha.
They were lining up Drew Brees to replace him, and well, that didn't work out. I thought NBC could flex the second half of the season. I thought they could start. I thought they could start flexing week. Also, there's a bye week in between week 8 bye week's week 9, so technically week 10, game 9 would be his first game. I'm pretty sure NBC can start flexing then. NFL would not be happy, but I'm sorry, cash the checks.
I'll let him know.
Welcome back to Miller and Moulton, only on the Florida Sports Network.
22 minutes before the hour. Thanks so much for being with us. Miller and Moulton, the Florida Sports Network, floridasportsnetwork.com. Matt Baker of the Tampa Bay Times, kind enough to join us. He covers college football for the Times with a focus on the Gators and the Noles. You can follow Matt on Twitter at MBakerTVTimes. MBakerTVTimes. We'll talk to Matt coming up here shortly. Dan Mullen, Mark, don't know if you saw it. Dan Mullen, who was going to be a high school coach, now looks as if he's going to spend the year doing sidelines for ESPN. I actually think Dan would be phenomenal on television. He's borderline cocky. He's got strong opinions. And I think Dan would be willing to criticize also because he's a straight shooter. I think Dan could be terrific on TV. The aforementioned Matt Baker, kind enough to join us. Tampa Bay Times. Follow him on Twitter, MBakerTVTimes, MBakerTVTimes. Matt, David, and Mark, once again, hope you have been well. How are you?
Well, typical Monday, David. Things aren't working here. So we'll have to pause with Matt as Felipe tries to get that working correctly. But such is life. Florida, we've talked about it before. The Gators have their whole seasons in September to me. And I get it that they got Georgia and A&M and Florida State and LSU all in the second half. But we're going to find out everything that we want to know about the Florida Gators by the end of September. Utah for the home opener. Then Kentucky the following week. They've got USF 3 straight home games before they go to Tennessee. I think, David, I don't know about you, but by the time we get to the beginning of October, we're going to know a lot about this Florida Gator team.
Yes, and there's a chance that they'll be underdogs in at least 2 of the 4, Utah and Tennessee. And I don't think there'll be much of a favorite, if any, in the Kentucky game also, unless they beat Utah. But the Gators have had a good July for whatever that's worth, and I think it's worth something. And that's why we wanted to talk to Matt Baker. They've landed a bunch of recruits, a half a dozen that are all 4 stars. So, and all of them within 350 miles of Gainesville. And
now they've lost out to the Canes on a few. They have been, I mean, the Canes and Gators have been battling for recruits, and the Canes have been winning more times than they've been losing. But you are right that Napier's doing what they need him to do, and that's get on the recruiting trail. I think they're already, if I'm not mistaken, for the 23 class, they're right now at like 17th, but it still could be a top 10 class by the time the day's out.
But it was a good month for those that have had questions about Billy Napier and his approach. And early on in the recruiting and NIL, Miami had their moments, and Alabama and Georgia are still getting theirs. Well, July was good for the Gators. And from a recruiting standpoint, I mean, he won some battles going up against the heavyweights too. So that's good news. We didn't see Dan win a lot of those battles, and that's why Dan is not the coach anymore.
There's no doubt there, because the recruiting had fallen off. You know, another area that fell off with the Gators, their special teams has been awful the past couple of years, where, you know, they used to have a consistent top special teams. Last year, that went to hell in a handbasket. So everything that could go wrong did go wrong. They will need to fix some of those areas very quickly if this early schedule. Because, you know, one little thing, they play Utah week 1, David, who's really physical. We know that you're playing men when you play Utah, and it will be in Florida. It will be hot. It will be humid. That gives the Gators an advantage there. But they're playing against a really good, really physical football team. Then they get Kentucky. Conversely, Kentucky has Miami of Ohio week 1 before they have to come play the Gators. So just a couple of the little things that I'm paying attention to when it comes to the Florida Gators September schedule, which I am all in on. Won't go to any of the games because it's too damn hot, David, but I'm all in on watching Gator football in the month of September.
Could I get you to mid-October LSU at home?
Yes.
It okay? By mid-October, you're ready to go.
I could definitely do that LSU game.
Okay.
Is it going to be at night?
There's a chance it's on CBS at 3:30. And I can see you hesitating. I know it's close. That's pretty much, that's your Mendoza line too in the month of October as to when you're maybe I'd go, but I don't know. It's still a little warm.
It's an iffy one right there.
We got to tell the full story. So I'm with the SEC on CBS, and we got a game. I think it was late September. I think it was a Tennessee game, and it was a good one. And Mark and our former producer John, okay, we all go. We get in the car in the morning. We drive the 250 miles. We're at the game. I'm working it. They're at it. They're having fun. They're out in the parking lot. They're in the stands. The whole deal. And if my memory served me correctly, and please correct me because I'll probably be wrong, but like late third quarter, all of a sudden, you're in and around the booth. You're in the press box area, and you guys are, and you look like you've been running. I mean, that's how hot and sweaty you are. And I turn during a break, and I look over at you, and you two make an announcement. We are never coming to a September sporting event outdoors in Florida again.
Again, that. We had seats for that game too, and it was so miserable hot in the stands. I mean, look, I give the Gator fan, the Bucks fan, the Dolph fan, those of you that can go out and endure the heat for 4 or 5 hours at one of these games, it impresses the hell out of me. I couldn't do it. There's been 2 times that we were up there for that. That was one that we announced. I think there was one other time that by the end of the second quarter, we were gone.
Right.
And we watched the second half in a bar in air conditioning.
So that LSU game, if I'm checking my math here, okay, I think that game is like the 15th.
It is exactly the 15th. Where Gainesville weather we could have fall by the 15th. You know, right. Tampa, you could have good weather, but Southwest Florida, that is still borderline miserable hot.
Okay, we need to define Gainesville fall. Gainesville fall is what, 85?
85. Humidity down at a level that we can take, you know, maybe 60% humidity.
Okay, so right now you're willing to, stick your, neck out. You would be willing to attend the LSU game on October 15th.
I think I would.
I think I would. All right. Obviously, technical issues with Matt Baker, and we won't be talking to him, and that's a shame. Hopefully, we can catch up with him later on in the week. Miller and Moulton here on the Florida Sports Network, floridasportsnetwork.com. I asked a question of you shortly before we went to break, in which I just nonchalantly asked, how long does the suspension have to be of Deshaun Watson for you, and I don't just mean you, Mark, I mean everyone listening, for you to go, okay, I'm all right with that. I can live with that. How long does it have to be? And I must admit, I am very torn here. I do not think Deshaun Watson is innocent of inappropriate conduct. I don't. I don't think 24 women are lying. Sorry. I don't. And 24 women, that's a lot. That's just those that sued him. That's not talking about that there are others. So this bothers me greatly. However, this is where I would get in hot water. Mark, you know how I've always said if I owned a team, I would never have anything to do with a player who abuses women or children.
Right.
That's it. They would be done with me. Drugs, alcohol, other things, I'm willing to play ball.
And
Not
give second chances. It's not even play
Yes.
ball. You've always said you really, because I don't want it. You've been incredibly consistent with this. I've known you for a long time.
right.
You'd give second chances, except for in the case of abuse of women or children.
Right. And even if it would hurt my franchise on the field, I would just say, sorry, I don't know what to tell you. This is what I stand for. I told you this when you signed the contract. I will have your back unless you do this. If you do this, you're dead to me and us. But here's the other thing that I've always stood for, Mark. And it happens more in college. And I remember Bobby Bowden used to get into some hot water when some Knowles got in trouble. And Bobby never suspended anybody when they were arrested, when they were alleged to do something. And Bobby always would say, well, we're going to wait to see how this plays out. All right. See if they're guilty. They're guilty. Oh, I'm going to suspend them and I'm going to do more than that. But until until everything gets adjudicated, Bobby and some other coaches are like, listen, I got the players back until it's been proven that I shouldn't have the players back. Mark, I've always believed that. I really have. I mean, we're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty, right? And
Right.
I would have a difficulty here because not one but two grand juries didn't even charge him with a crime. Now, do I think he has done wrong? Absolutely, I do. Just like I think Bonds and Sosa and Clemens took steroids, even though none of them ever failed the steroids test. But if I were commissioner or if I were GM of a team, the problem that I have here is that while I don't want the guy on my team, he wasn't even charged with a crime. I'm going to suspend him, and he wasn't even charged with a crime. Now, do I think he committed one? Yes. Do I want no part of him? Yes. But as someone who has always believed you don't hand down punishment until the matter is adjudicated, well, in this case, it was essentially adjudicated twice, and two grand juries did not even think he was worthy of being charged with a crime. And I would be really torn here. I think either way, I'm going to be a hypocrite. Whichever way I go with this. Because, Mark, I don't think there's a middle ground. I mean, like, my two sides of my brain are 1 year and nothing.
And that's, funny, David, we have texts that are of the exact same thing. Suspended 0 games, innocent until proven guilty. The very next text says 1 year.
And I understand that the NFL has suspended people without being charged before. Roethlisberger got 6 games. On appeal, it became 4. He was never charged. There are other examples. The NFL's justice is not mine, and it may not be yours. But so it doesn't matter to the NFL. We all know what they're going to try to do here. But I am genuinely torn about this. And as I've joked, the person I'm very pro-female. The dominant people in my life have been women. All right? My mother. All right? 2 grandmothers. All right? My wife, my daughter. All right? The dominant people in my life have been female. There's really only been one galvanizing male force in my life. It was my mother's father. So I have always been, I'm very pro women. Nobody talks up women's sports into a microphone more than me.
That's very true.
And yet the part of me that is like, man, you're going to suspend a guy who didn't even get charged with a crime. You do know that goes against everything you've been saying for 25 years. And that's where I'm really torn. I'm going to be a hypocrite either way.
What do you think it's going to be? What do you think Judge Robinson's ruling is going to be?
8 games.
I think you're right. I think it's going to be between 8 and 12, and if I were to bet, I'd bet on 8.
For the record, Week 9 is a bye week for the Browns. Week 10 would be the first game that Deshaun would play if he is suspended 8 games. The Browns, Week 10, are in Miami to face the Dolphins. How ironic. The Dolphins, who were very interested in acquiring Deshaun Watson.
Miller and Moulton. Supposed to have the ruling at 9 o'clock this morning. We'll be in our bonus hour. For those of you that listen in Tampa, St. Pete, Port Charlotte, or Lake City, we'll still be on the air if you want to follow us online for that. And then the appeal starts from the league, more than likely. Miller and Moulton, we thank you so much for listening. Another hour in the books right here on the Florida Sports Network.
Bring your big mouth to John Smith Subs and indulge in their overstuffed subs with the freshest quality ingredients. Enjoy our famous steak bomb with perfectly grilled, marinated sirloin steak topped with provolone cheese, grilled onions, peppers, mushrooms, crispy bacon, juicy tomatoes, and creamy mayo. Boom! Made-to-order crispy fries can be paired with the Gator, the Cuban, the chicken bomb, or the Italian. Love local. Eat delicious with John Smith Subs. Find a John Smith Subs location near you today.
Golfers, are you bored of the same old driving range warm-up routine that's not getting you the results that you want on the course? Power up your golf swing by adding resistance bands to your range sessions with the Orange Whip Golf's Power Strap Kit. Featuring band attachments to your feet and hips, Power Strap resistance training will boost clubhead speed, increase power, improve flexibility, all with just a few swings. Buy a Power Strap Kit today. Go to orangewhipgolf.com and use code Miller10 to receive an additional 10% off the already great price of $119.
David Moulton for Napa, Napa Auto Parts, and Napa Filters. Insist on Napa filters for your vehicles, or if you're a do-it-yourselfer, only buy Napa filters. Napa has a filter for almost anything on earth that moves, whether it's motorcycles, foreign and domestic cars, vans, SUVs, earth-moving equipment. You get the idea. Napa Auto Parts, Napa filters. Insist on them for your vehicles, or if you're do-it-yourselfer, only buy Napa filters.
Mark Miller for SWFL Golf Carts, or online, flgolfcarts.com. If you're looking for a golf cart, an e-bike, or an e-motorcycle, go visit Alex and the gang at SWFL Golf Carts. flgolfcarts.com online. Check out their whole inventory. If you're looking for a custom cart, they can take care of you. 2-seater, 4-seater, 6-seater, they've got you covered. E-bikes, nobody better for value and service. E-motorcycles, check them out. Again, flgolfcarts.com. flgolfcarts.com.
We did this before the pandemic, and now we're doing it again. The Miller and Moulton Fantasy Football Summit.
We want you to win your fantasy football league, so we've recruited an expert just for you.
Dr. Roto, who you hear regularly Thursdays on Miller and Moulton during the season, will give you his tips, advice, and insight just days before your fantasy draft.
In addition to that, you'll get food and drink and all of your questions answered. You'll leave the Miller and Moulton Fantasy Football Summit with the Dr. Roto cheat sheet so that you can draft a great team and follow his award-winning insight throughout the season.
So if you want to win, we'll see you August 11th, Shoeless Joe's Sports Cafe for dinner, drinks, and the doctor, Dr. Roto, that is.
Go to floridasportsnetwork.com to sign up today. That's floridasportsnetwork.com for the Fantasy Football Summit.
Thursday, August 11th, 7 o'clock, Shoeless Joe's Sports Cafe.
You were listening to Miller and Moulton on the Florida Sports Network.
Yeah, Lehigh running back went to Alabama.
He did?
Yeah, and what's interesting is he chose Bama a day or two after, like, the other 5-star running back that was out there also chose Alabama. But I got to be honest, if I was a 5-star running back, I would want another 5-star running back on the team. I want to split carries. I don't want to carry the ball 300 times a year. Instead of 900 carries in my 3 years, I want about 400 to 500 carries. Less wear and tear.
Did you see the text, the guy that kind of chirped Phil there?
Yes.
Do it for the Saudi royal family.
He apologized to Phil. He sent out a couple of things afterwards, said he apologized, said Phil was cool.
Nebraska's a 10.5-point favorite. Oop, David, are you there? David?
Oh, no. We're back in 5 seconds.
You are listening to Miller and Moulton, exclusively on the Florida Sports Network. And now, here's Mark Miller and David Moulton.
Miller and Moulton halfway home on a Monday, August 1st. Thank you for joining us here on the Florida Sports Network, floridasportsnetwork.com. You can follow us on Twitter, that Mark Miller, the David Moulton, as far as that goes. David having some technical difficulties in New Jersey that happened literally right before we came back on the air. So I'm hoping that he will reconnect with us shortly. If not, Felipe is in the bullpen ready to start talking football, right, Felipe?
Oh, yeah.
We've got to train you over the course of the coming months, because if it's, if we have these technical difficulties and it's the middle of the NBA playoffs, you're ready. The rest of the year, I don't know if you're ready.
Right. And there's not many days where either Miller or Moulton are out. It's always Miller and Moulton.
That is the case. Although I think we'll have a few Tuesdays this year when David's out west that he may not be joining us in full with the whole Monday Night Football schedule, but we will keep you posted as that comes. The text line for the show is 21,000. The keyword is FSN Radio. FSN Radio to 21,000 is the number. A reminder that our Fantasy Football Summit is 1 week from Thursday. You can go to floridasportsnetwork.com to sign up, floridasportsnetwork.com, and sign up for our Fantasy Football Summit with Dr. Roto at Shoeless Joe Sports Cafe on Thursday, August the 11th.
How are some of the texters texting about the chicken wing results last week? Because I can't believe that Drums won. I'm sorry.
Why?
Because flats
the drums are far more popular, and it's not close.
But flats have more meat.
I'm just telling you that drums are more popular. That's just very simple.
Is it because they're easier to eat, though?
Yes. It's exactly why.
Yeah, but the saying is more meat on the bone,
I hear you. I hear you. David, one of the things I wanted to get into with you, and welcome back. I'm glad you got reconnected. Always nice to have both of us here for the show, especially when it happens literally at like 8:01:30. But A.J. Brown made some comments I think it was yesterday, in which, all these receivers getting new deals. I'm the only one that got traded. Well, Devontae Adams got traded too. But if you're Tennessee right now, I was looking at a graph with all these receivers that got paid. What was Tennessee thinking? What?
Well, I think Tennessee just didn't budget for this boom in the wide receiver market, and they got caught flat-footed. And quite frankly, between Tannehill and Henry, they didn't have room for a third guy on offense.
But everybody in the league, LA can kick the can down the road better than anybody. This was a case that I think, you and I have talked about this division at length. There's no clear-cut favorite in that division. If it is Tennessee.
Well, let me ask you this. They would have to go to probably Tannehill and say, hey, we need to rework this contract. Well, to rework it, you need to add years to it. If you were Tennessee, would you be willing to add years to Ryan Tannehill's contract?
Do you think it would have been more than 2?
No, but I think they would have add 2 years. Ryan has shown he doesn't give a discount. When he got named the starter, he got $33 million, which at the time was really big money. And there are people today who don't think he's worth $33 million. And he certainly wasn't in the playoff game against the Bengals. But that's probably where they would have had to go to find the money to pay him. Now, I think if you had gone to Tannehill and said, here's the deal, we got to rework your contract or you're going to lose A.J. Brown, I think Tannehill would have played ball.
I do too. And I really wonder what they're going to be able to do without A.J. Brown. Is a game-changing type receiver. We're going to find that out in Philadelphia. He is someone that's really difficult to cover. He is physical as all get up. He can block. He wins the one-on-one battles going up for balls because he's physically stronger than most of the corners and he's ever going to go up against.
I also think, Mark, what it does is that it takes Tennessee from a team that last year was a legitimate Super Bowl contender. And now it's difficult to think of them as a Super Bowl contender. Win the AFC South contender, of course. But now it's difficult to envision that Tennessee is a Super Bowl contender. Their margin of error offensively is so small.
In that playoffs game, in that Titans playoff game that they lost tragically to the Bengals, in a game that didn't have that much offense, A.J. Brown had 142 yards. So yeah, I'm with you. He is a game-changing wide receiver.
The Titans, they actually moved the ball all up and down the field for large periods of time. They blew that game. They loused it up. It happens. It happens. I mean, the Packers screwed up the playoff game against the Niners last year with Aaron Rodgers. You know, everybody harps on Ryan Tannehill. Hey, Rodgers was not good in the entire second half against the Niners. I mean, he made a great play at the end of the first half that should have resulted in points, and the Packers screwed that up. But I mean, the whole second half, he was lousy against the Niners. Lousy. It happens. It's sports.
I will say the Niners defense a little bit more than the Bengals defense.
Agreed.
As far as to slow someone down. We're talking about an elite
Agreed.
group in San Francisco and what was a okay, good to average, good to above average group in Cincinnati. I would say more along the lines of good, but neither here nor there. Both quarterbacks screwed it up. One's considered to be at the height of the game, and he didn't take the beating that the guy named Ryan Tannehill took. I mean, we like to pile on the guy that's mediocre a lot more, David.
Yes. It's a lot easier. But there's no doubt the last two playoff games that the Packers have had, they've lost. And there's one part of both that's, tried and true. The Bucs and the Niners each had 5 sacks. I mean, it's the old adage, hit the quarterback, get to the quarterback. It's been a winning way to play football from the 70s right on through.
And on that note, we're still waiting for the Bucs to go out and sign J.C. Trotter there or somebody at the center position with Jensen being out, because you're talking now a new center and 2 new guards for a team whose quarterback's going to turn 45 this week.
The Bucs are now trying to say, it's very unfortunate that we've lost Ryan Jensen, but we actually really like this backup center. Okay. All right. Translated, we're going to see what Brady thinks of practicing with this guy for a week. And if Brady says he can live with this guy, okay. And if Brady goes, we're going to do better than this, right? Then we're going to go do better than this. So we're going to let the offensive coordinator / assistant general manager make the determination as to whether or not we get a different center.
I want to say Brady's over-under number for passing yards this year is like 4,500.
Yeah, I'm going over.
I am too. They're going to throw the ball 45 times a game.
I mean, their running back room isn't as good as it was last year, and he threw for over 5,000 yards last year. So now we need him to throw for 700 yards less? Yeah. Count me as an over. Now he's got to stay healthy. That's the other part of this. Misses 2 games, and an over-under is very much in question. And as you mentioned, how old does he turn this week?
45.
And he's not just a starting quarterback. He's on the preseason MVP list again. In fact, I mean, Mark, I'll say this. Bucs making the Super Bowl on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being shocked, 1 being, kind of expected it. All right. If I tell you Bucs are going to make the Super Bowl this year, what would you rank it?
4?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
3, 4, somewhere in that, general range.
I'd say 3.
Yeah. I mean, we get to January. Think about the teams that you head-to-head. The Rams, obviously. Now, it's ironic. The Saints seem to have their number. Saints got to get to January. But the Saints have, they're 4-1 in the last 2 years, including the playoffs. The one was a playoff game, but, I mean, they've taken care of the Bucs pretty good. The Rams last year beat them twice. You got to throw the Packers in the mix, although the Bucs have done well the last couple of years, regular season and postseason against Aaron Rodgers and Green Bay.
But who are you taking, Dallas or Tampa? Philly or Tampa?
And remember, we're talking January. We're not talking regular season opener or just, a Sunday in October here. We're talking, it's all on the line.
Also,
who are you taking here?
Let's not forget that the Buccaneers were a blown coverage away from probably beating the Rams in overtime.
Well, They also were down 3 touchdowns in that game. I mean, they kind of were fortunate that they were able to come back and tie it. So Rams outplayed them. Rams deserved that game. They outplayed them for large portions of that game.
That
You were
is true.
there.
Yeah,
You were
that is
there.
true. Oh, they got very lucky. I
I
will
mean,
say.
the Rams deserved that win.
Yes.
They did.
They're the better team.
That
But
day.
not by much.
Yeah,
But not by
that
much.
day. That day, they were the better team. They had played 10 times at Ray J. I think it would have been 5-5 or 6-4 either way. But if you're thinking about, okay, if the Bucs, once again, knock on wood, the Bucs with who we think they're bringing to the fight, relatively healthy in January, in the NFC, not the AFC, we'd line up 6 teams that we think, wow, they got a real shot. In the NFC in January, who do you say, oh, yeah, they'll line up with Tampa Bay and beat them?
And as good as the Niners roster is, it's a brand new quarterback. I have no trust there.
Well, and also, Mark, their defensive line's been devastated by injuries just in camp. I mean, they've placed 2 guys on the IL. One guy had to retire. They're signing guys off the street just for camp. I mean, I keep waiting for San Francisco. Maybe they will use that Jimmy G money to go bring in a Sue or whomever. I mean, they need help along the defensive line.
One of the areas, there's still some bodies out there in free agency that you can still get decent players to come sign for you right now, but they don't have money. That's where the Jimmy G trade comes in that we've been talking about, or cutting him for that matter, which seems like it's more likely to happen right now. I guess we'll know at 9:00 this morning.
Well, last thing the Browns said publicly is no matter what, we're going with Jacoby Brissett.
Do you believe them?
No, I think it depends on the suspension.
Me too.
Anything less 10 or less, they'll stay with Brissett. Above 10, hey, call the Niners about Jimmy G.
Miller and Moulton. Again, always taking your thoughts on the text line. Text 21,000 is the number. FSN radio is the keyword if you've never done so before. We're awaiting the suspension of Deshaun Watson at 9:00. We'll have it during our bonus hour right here. Miller and Moulton. Where else but the Florida Sports Network? Back with more in a moment.
Golfers, are you bored of the same old driving range warm-up routine that's not getting you the results that you want on the course? Power up your golf swing by adding resistance bands to your range sessions with the Orange Whip Golf's Power Strap Kit, featuring band attachments to your feet and hips. Power Strap resistance training will boost club head speed, increase power, improve flexibility, all with just a few swings. Buy a Power Strap Kit today. Go to orangewhipgolf.com and use code Miller10 to receive an additional 10% off the already great price of $119.
Mark Miller for SWFL Golf Carts, or online, flgolfcarts.com. If you're looking for a golf cart, an e-bike, or an e-motorcycle, go visit Alex and the gang at SWFL Golf Carts. flgolfcarts.com online. Check out their whole inventory. If you're looking for a custom cart, they can take care of you. 2-seater, 4-seater, 6-seater, they've got you covered. E-bikes, nobody better for value and service. E-motorcycles, check them out. Again, flgolfcarts.com. flgolfcarts.com.
Bring your big mouth to John Smith Subs and indulge in their overstuffed subs with the freshest quality ingredients. Enjoy our famous steak bomb with perfectly grilled marinated sirloin steak topped with provolone cheese, grilled onions, peppers, mushrooms, crispy bacon, juicy tomatoes, and creamy mayo. Boom! Made-to-order crispy fries can be paired with the Gator, the Cuban, the chicken bomb, or the Italian. Love local. Eat delicious with John Smith Subs. Find a John Smith Subs location near you today.
David Moulton for Napa Auto Parts, and Napa Filters. Insist on Napa filters for your vehicles, or if you're a do-it-yourselfer, only buy Napa filters. Napa has a filter for almost anything on earth that moves, whether it's motorcycles, foreign and domestic cars, vans, SUVs, earth-moving equipment. You get the idea. Napa Auto Parts, Napa filters. Insist on them for your vehicles, or if you're a do-it-yourselfer, only buy Napa filters.
You were listening to Miller and Moulton on the Florida Sports Network.
Buccaneers kind of have a tough schedule this year.
It's not like an AFC schedule.
That's true.
Take a look at the teams in the AFC,
That's
and
true.
there's only 3 that you're considered below average. So it's tough to put games on the schedule that people go, oh, well, that's easy.
That game, December 11th in San Francisco against the Niners. That'll be a good game.
Who are we talking about?
Bucks at Niners. December 11th. Niners kept Debo. That's big for them.
From Peter King's article this morning, Brady will become the 9th player to play an NFL game after his 45th. 5 are kickers.
Mm-hmm.
A lineman named John Nesser played 2 games for Columbus in 1921, and Bobby Marshall played 3 games in Duluth in 1925. So if Brady lines up, he'll be the first non-kicker at 45 or older to play a game in 97 years.
My God. What I'm wondering is when we'll see that again, because I think it will.
Wait a minute. I thought Blanda played it older. Blanda is the only.
I think he just looked at.
Oh, Blanda is the only quarterback to throw a pass after the age of 45. No starts.
Blanda was 48 when he retired.
And he threw passes at 48. Mop-up duty for Madden in the Raiders.
But Shed, has anyone been watching The Captain, like the episodes of the Derek Jeter thing?
I watched the first 2.
And
there is some new stuff. He does talk about some new things, but I found it to be more a Yankeeography.
Welcome back to Miller and Moulton, only on the Florida Sports Network.
21 minutes past the hour. Miller and Moulton, Florida Sports Network, floridasportsnetwork.com. Sports World. Mourning the loss of Bill Russell yesterday morning at the age of 88. In team sports, regarded as the greatest winner ever. Certainly in American team sports, there are Olympians who have, quote unquote, won more, but 2 NCAA championships at that basketball power that is the University of San Francisco.
I don't know what's more impressive at San Francisco, the 2 championships or the 55 consecutive victories at San Francisco. I mean, they are equally as impressive, and I'm not trying to dismantle or talk disparagingly about a title, but 55 in a row at San Francisco.
Then helps lead the U.S. to gold in the 56 Olympics, and then starts his Celtics career immediately following. 13 years, 11 championships, 12 trips to the finals. He got hurt in the one finals they lost. They lost in 6 to the Hawks. He got hurt in game 3, and I don't believe he played the rest of the series. Mark, there's so many amazing numbers with Bill Russell, and he was much more than that, a civil rights icon. Talked openly about the racism that he faced in Boston, even though he oftentimes spoke about his love for the Celtics and Auerbach, and does have some nice things to say about Boston. He was painfully honest, also talking about what it is he had to endure through the late 50s and the entire decade of the 60s in Boston. He also was not an autograph guy. He was a pictures guy. He would take a picture with just about anybody. But a reporter told a story yesterday, Mark, about how he was in Boston and he was being honored before a game at Fenway, and a bunch of Red Sox came out of the dugout and they wanted his autograph. And he said, "No, I don't do autographs. I'll take a picture with you, but I'm not an autograph guy."
I love that. I do. Because did you ever collect autographs as a kid? Did you ever try to get autographs?
One time, literally, I went for autographs one time in my life. My grandfather was 13, took me to a preseason Giants game in 1979. It happened to be the year they drafted Phil Simms. And we got there early. We used to go to one preseason game, Giants game a year. That was the only way we could get our hands on tickets, because at the time it wasn't included in the season ticket package. And he took me early, and I stood there right by the players' entrance. And I got Phil, I got Harry Carson, George Martin. I got some, good players on what was still a bad team. But that is the only time I ever collected autographs, literally one day in my life.
Yeah, I remember I did as a kid, and we had a minor league hockey team in our town. And, after the game, you'd wait and you'd get autograph, get things signed. And then I remember looking at them, a couple years later going, what are these even on? They're on, almost like random scrap pieces of paper. They're the most useless things ever. I do like the idea of getting the picture, though. Much rather have the picture.
So back to Russell for a second. He was undefeated in game 7s. We gave that stat out earlier. I think it was 10 game 7s. I think that, he played, 10 game 7s, undefeated in the game 7s. Mark, in those 10 games, and 10 games, 48 minutes a game, and I think one game even went overtime. So they played 485 minutes in those 10 game 7s. Of the 485 minutes, he played 478 of them. He didn't play in 7 total minutes in those 10 game 7s. So from an endurance standpoint, being able to stay out of foul trouble, the whole deal. All right. And he averaged in those game 7s, he averaged 29 rebounds a game. Now,
Just 29.
Just 29. It was a different game then, yes. But at 10-0, he was good for 47 minutes and change, and he averaged nearly 30 boards a game in the game sevens. A few of them against Will Chamberlain.
Well, David, we have some news to report. Adam Schefter is reporting that the disciplinary actions have been issued by Sue Robinson. It is 6 games of what they recommended. A 6-game suspension for Deshaun Watson. Should take 38 seconds for the appeal to start by the league.
I was going to say.
But you were incorrect about something. Game 7 for the Browns is at the Ravens. Their bye is week 9 because they just had the schedule up.
No, I said that. I specifically said if he gets an 8-game suspension, game 8 is the home game against Cincinnati on Monday Night Football.
Right.
Week 9's a bye. Then their 9th game is Miami. So that was under an 8-game suspension, not a 6-game suspension.
But a 6-game suspension is what has been issued. We all think it's going to be appealed by the league. But Deshaun Watson has been suspended. The NFLPA says it will not appeal the disciplinary officer Sue Robinson's ruling. Now, whether or not the league wills, we will find out. But 6 games for Deshaun Watson.
I'm impressed you were able to say that without laughter, without tongue-in-cheek there. We'll see if the league will appeal.
I'm sorry, we'll see how long it takes the league to appeal.
Thank you. It is officially now 8:28 a.m. We go to break in 3 minutes. Mark, pay close attention and see whether or not Adam Schefter is reporting that the league has appealed before we go to break. So a female judge who was agreed upon by both parties, a former, Superior Court judge, 6 games. She did indicate shortly after hearing both sides, she is a judge that goes with precedent a lot, which led those who have looked at past NFL discipline to say, ooh, this could be in the 6 to 8 game range. Wow. She goes with 6.
So, well, there it is. We didn't know if it would happen. We thought 9 o'clock is what we kept hearing, but word, as always, gets out a little early. And Adam Schefter reporting a 6-game suspension for Deshaun Watson. Monday night game should be interesting if it stays the same.
Well, that'll be a pretty big ratings draw. It won't be his first game as a Brown, but it'll be his first home game as a Brown if it stays. Well, we can come up with a poll question now. Do you agree with Judge Robinson's decision? Yes or no? What do you think of the 6-game penalty? Should have gotten less. That's about right. Should have gotten more.
How long will it take the league to appeal? 3 seconds, 5 seconds, 60 seconds.
The show ends at 10 o'clock. Will the NFL have appealed by then? So, 6 games.
I'm very surprised.
Okay. Now, to be serious for a second, and I know we got to go to break. You do know the NFL is going to appeal to themselves. And now, if you're the NFL, what kind of penalty do you hand down?
They've always wanted a year. All they had to get was 1 game to essentially do whatever the hell that they wanted. They got 6. If there were no games, there was no appeal process. They got the 6 games. Now the league can do whatever it is they want to do from an appeal standpoint. Miller and Moulton, thanks for listening on the Florida Sports Network.
Golfers, are you bored of the same old driving range warm-up routine that's not getting you the results that you want on the course? Power up your golf swing by adding resistance bands to your range sessions with the Orange Whip Golf's Power Strap Kit. Featuring band attachments to your feet and hips, Power Strap resistance training will boost clubhead speed, increase power, improve flexibility, all with just a few swings. Buy a Power Strap Kit today. Go to orangewhipgolf.com and use code Miller10 to receive an additional 10% off the already great price of $119.
Mark Miller for SWFL Golf Carts or online, flgolfcarts.com. If you're looking for a golf cart, an e-bike, or an e-motorcycle, go visit Alex and the gang at SWFL Golf Carts. flgolfcarts.com online. Check out their whole inventory. If you're looking for a custom cart, they can take care of you. 2-seater, 4-seater, 6-seater, they've got you covered. E-bikes, nobody better for value and service. E-motorcycles, check them out. Again, flgolfcarts.com. flgolfcarts.com.
We did this before the pandemic, and now we're doing it again. The Miller and Moulton Fantasy Football Summit.
We want you to win your fantasy football league, so we've recruited an expert just for you.
Dr. Roto, who you hear regularly Thursdays on Miller and Moulton during the season, will give you his tips, advice, and insight just days before your fantasy draft.
In addition to that, you'll get food and drink and all of your questions answered. You'll leave the Miller and Moulton Fantasy Football Summit with the Dr. Roto cheat sheet so that you can draft a great team and follow his award-winning insight throughout the season.
So if you want to win, we'll see you August 11th, Shoeless Joe's Sports Cafe for dinner, drinks, and the doctor. Dr. Roto, that is.
Go to floridasportsnetwork.com to sign up today. That's floridasportsnetwork.com for the Fantasy Football Summit.
Thursday, August 11th, 7 o'clock, Shoeless Joe's Sports Cafe.
You are listening to Miller and Moulton on the Florida Sports Network.
David, would you have rather I waited till after the break to get into that? Oh, you don't have headsets on, so it doesn't really matter. Would you have rather I waited till the break to get into that, or is that all right?
No. And that was fine. You know,
Yeah.
we did 5 and 5 there. Those are the two big stories. And Mark, it'll probably be just, you'll say, hey, move this, do this, what have you, and we'll just take the weekend to, move it all into the garage.
Yeah. And I can help you too if you need it.
I may need help with like 2 things in the master bedroom.
No problem.
Everything else, I think, can be moved. The other thing is, I think stuff could be just moved to the side, pictures taken, and moved back.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
"30 seconds." Says no fine for Deshaun.
Well, right. He doesn't get paid for the 6 games he's suspended.
Right.
It would be funny, KW, but I don't think in this case it is. I figured they were going to give it to somebody early.
Thanks for listening. And now, more of Miller and Moulton on the Florida Sports Network.
22 minutes before the top of the hour, when we say goodbye to our audience in Lake City and surrounding areas, in Tampa, St. Pete, and Port Charlotte and Venice. We thank you for listening, especially those in the 239, a place that we have called home for quite a while, where the bonus hour begins at the top of the hour. Miller and Moulton, the Florida Sports Network, floridasportsnetwork.com, a place where you can go to normally vote on our poll question, but we waited until Judge Robinson rendered her decision, or at least when it became public, as to how long Deshaun Watson would be suspended, because that obviously was going to be the focal point of our poll question. It turns out in the last 20 minutes, we found out, Mark, that former district federal judge Sue Robinson, a 70-year-old from Delaware, is suspending Deshaun Watson for 6 games. No fine. By league rules, he is not paid a salary during those 6 games, which in Watson's case will cost him about $350,000, because his salary for this year is a mere $1 million. 6 games. I'm surprised. I thought it would be at least 8.
I did too. So the Browns, until the appeal is filed by the league, which we anticipate has already happened. And I guess it won't happen until after 9, because that's when the official word will come out. All of this we're hearing is I guess rumor from that standpoint. But it'll be after 9 o'clock that we'll find out whether or not the league is going to appeal the suspension, which all of us think that they will, because they do appeal it to themselves.
All right. If you're Goodell, and I know the answer is he can do anything. He has the ultimate power. It's been given to him in collective bargaining. In theory, there is nothing the players or the union could do. But normally, Mark, when a party comes in on appeal, they infrequently take a 6-game penalty and then make it a 17-game penalty, if you know what I mean. I mean, rarely do you see in cases, even in our judicial system, someone is handed down a small sentence and the side appeals. Very rarely then, upon appeal, does the 3-year penalty become a 10-year penalty. So if you're Goodell, I know you can do it. And the labor agreement that you have with the players runs for a decade. But can you turn 6 into 17 and just say, suck it up and deal?
I know what you're asking here. And obviously, as you mentioned, of course he can. But it is a hell of a look to jump a 6. I mean, to take a federal judge,
Correct.
someone that all parties should hold with a great deal of respect for what this person's done in her lifetime.
And remember, the NFL agreed to have her be the arbiter in this case.
So to tell the arbiter,
You suck.
you suck. And I mean, let me just tell you how much you suck. You suck because I'm going to basically make this suspension 3 times the length
Right.
than you did.
Right. I mean, that's
the part of this that, David, here, I'm sure they can always pay someone to come sit and hear these cases. But if you actually want to have whoever is hearing these cases think that they have something to do with it, don't you then have to at least accept some sort of discipline that you give them the opportunity to strike? I mean, if they do 3 times that, who's ever going to want to take this job next? What regard does that job have? It's just someone sitting there so Raj can get what he wants.
Well, the other thing that you potentially do, now you could argue it doesn't matter. You could argue that. And legally, the players have no ground of which to speak from. They agreed to this system of justice in their collective bargaining. The league can appeal the arbiter's decision, and they appeal it to themselves. And then whatever they decide is 100% final. There is no appeals process after Goodell's rendering. But Mark, there's not much that would get players to threaten to hold out or strike. But you said the union would never go for, and if you're just joining us, apparently negotiations took place last week between the two sides. Watson was willing to go 6 to 8 games. The NFL came off of a year and was willing to go 12 games with an $8 million fine. And Mark said there's no way the union would ever let Watson agree to pay the $8 million fine, even with the $50 million he's got in the bank, because no player had ever been fined more than $760,000 before. So they're not going to agree to this. It would set a precedent. No way. Well, if you're the Players Association and Goodell goes galactic here and he says, it's 17 games, suck it up and deal. I'm wondering if you're the players, do you say, well, we ain't playing?
I don't think that would ever happen.
You don't think the players would rally behind this?
No.
Knowing full well it could all happen to them then. If they were to get in trouble, okay, and you go through the process and a federal judge says this should be your penalty, and the league goes, hell with that.
David, they won't walk out when they're all collectively on the same side. You think they're going to walk out over a player that got suspended for having 75,000 massages by 78,000 different women? No, I don't think that would ever happen. I don't think that these players all stand for enough collectively to walk out on anything, David. They can't do it when they're bargaining the contract. So why do you think they would do it now? I don't.
I just asked. I didn't know if this would be enough, if this would galvanize the players in which they would go, listen, this is absolutely ridiculous. Okay, we gave you the power, but quite frankly, we gave you the power because we trusted you to be reasonable. Nobody takes 6 and makes it 17. That's not reasonable.
Agree 100%. Now, where it could happen, and we're only in what, year 3 of a 10-year agreement?
If that.
So would they have enough to, because one, I don't know if Raj is going to be in charge. By the time the next agreement comes along, there's a really good chance that Raj isn't the commissioner anymore.
Although, would you give up a job that's paying between 40 and 60 a year? But I know what you're saying.
No, but I mean, just at the age he's
Right.
at the end of this,
Yeah.
he may say it's time for me. I've done everything I can do. I'm going to step down. I'm going to enjoy the rest of my life.
I agree. And he may say, you know what, it's time for the next commissioner to deal with the CBA.
So,
Or he says, you know what, this will be the last thing I do. I'll do the CBA and then I'll hand it off to the next commissioner.
so that's the first thing. But if the next agreement comes, would they hold enough venom on this to try desperately to get this portion of the deal kicked out? And all they've ever really wanted is money. They've never cared about the Raj thing because they don't think it's
Right.
going to happen to them.
I just wanted to bring it up. I didn't know, if this happens. Here's the other thing. We fully expect the NFL to appeal. And I would expect Raj to add at least 2 games to it. I really would. I don't think there's no reason. I mean, if you think about it, Mark, in theory, if the NFL appeals, they're stating they're going to add games to the suspension.
100%.
I mean, what are they going to do? Appeal? Raj is going to sit for 2 weeks and ponder and go, you know what? The judge was right. What?
We're going to reduce it to 4.
So if they appeal, you figure they're going to add games. It's just a matter of how many. But then the other thing is, how fast is he going to move? I mean, the whole league's upset with the Browns over the Deshaun Watson contract.
And they moved at a snail's pace throughout this whole thing. There's no reason to any of us that this should have taken this long.
So the question we have to ask, though, first is, are you okay with 6 games? Now, there are those like, Canada Relief in our Twitch chat room. 6 to 8 was the popular opinion, was it not? Well, I didn't hear a lot of 6. That's what Watson's side was pressing. They kept saying that the precedent that's out there in NFL punishment circles is 6. But most people were thinking a minimum 8. Somewhere between 8 and a year was the popular window, if you will. And as been pointed out by some, we'll say it again, Watson's salary for this year is only $1 million. He got a $45 million signing bonus. That is not punishable. So when he suspended 6 games, 6 out of 17, he will lose a third or slightly more than a third of his check. That's it. So we're talking $333 to say $350,000. That's all that Watson is going to lose financially from this suspension. But are you okay, ladies and gentlemen, with 6 games? I mean, that has to be some form, I think, of our poll question. Deshaun Watson was suspended, 6 games. How do you feel about the decision? A, I'm okay with it. B, I thought it should have been less. C, thought it should have been more. D, thought it should have been a lot more.
And so now we're looking at a 6-game suspension. As David said, I think the funny part of this, if there is an appeal, we know right away that it's at least 8. I mean, the next guess is 8 or 17, because that's basically, to me, what the appeal will be. Are they going to add 2 games to this, keep him off Monday Night Football for his home opener, or are they going to try to suspend him for the whole year?
And I'm just throwing out there the possibility that if Goodell goes nuclear, does the Players Association go nuclear back?
And I don't think the Players Union has enough togetherness to, particularly on this subject. I mean, this is one, from what you're saying, if players are going to walk out or they're going to try to get the players to demand something out of the league. Well, in order to do that, you'd have to nearly walk out. And remember, that means players going home and telling their wives, I'm going to strike for Deshaun Watson.
Well, but think about how ugly it could get. Like, what if the NFLPA was able to have a 1-day walkout? Do the clubs, who in theory, if you don't show up for a day at camp, it's $50,000 a day, isn't it? would the teams in turn fine every player who didn't show up $50,000? I mean, could this escalate really quickly? Or does the Players Association, if the NFL hands down further discipline, just do nothing?
I think they would do nothing, would be my guess. If it goes to 17, then I think they will try to somehow get this back in court and go, may sue the league and go.
But if you read the collective bargaining agreement, it states clearly there is no place to go after the league appeals and renders its verdict. That's it. They agreed to it. Raj is the decider. There is no take this into the legal system. It says it clear as day.
So I don't think the players would walk out in any way, shape, or form. I think the union would be ticked, but I don't know what they would be able to get the players to do, David.
And as some are pointing out, Calvin Ridley, remember, is suspended for the entire year for gambling.
Apples and oranges, guys. Apples and oranges. Calvin Ridley bet on the National Football League. I don't know what to tell you. That's a no-no. One has nothing to do with the other.
And I'm guessing that we are going to hear from Judge Robinson in the next minutes when her decision becomes public that she's going to simply say he violated the league's code of conduct, and precedent says that's 6 games. That's why he got 6 games, and that it doesn't matter what it is that he did, how many times he did it, that this is a simple case of he violated the code of conduct. Precedent says he gets 6.
Deshaun Watson, 6-game suspension, finally coming out this morning on August 1st after we've been waiting what seems like forever to figure out what the hell the league was going to do, and Judge Robinson's decision out this morning. 6 games. That takes them at the Ravens for Deshaun Watson's first game, and then Monday night home for the Bengals for his debut in Cleveland. Miller and Moulton. One more hour left. It's the bonus hour in the 239 on the Florida Sports Network.
David Moulton for Napa Auto Parts, and Napa Filters. Insist on Napa filters for your vehicles, or if you're a do-it-yourselfer, only buy Napa filters. Napa has a filter for almost anything on earth that moves, whether it's motorcycles, foreign and domestic cars, vans, SUVs, earth-moving equipment. You get the idea. Napa Auto Parts, Napa filters. Insist on them for your vehicles, or if you're do-it-yourselfer, only buy Napa filters.
Bring your big mouth to John Smith Subs and indulge in their overstuffed subs with the freshest quality ingredients. Enjoy our famous steak bomb with perfectly grilled, marinated sirloin steak topped with provolone cheese, grilled onions, peppers, mushrooms, crispy bacon, juicy tomatoes, and creamy mayo. Boom! Made-to-order crispy fries can be paired with the Gator, the Cuban, the chicken bomb, or the Italian. Love local. Eat delicious with John Smith Subs. Find a John Smith Subs location near you today.
Mark Miller for SWFL Golf Carts, or online, flgolfcarts.com. If you're looking for a golf cart, an e-bike, or an e-motorcycle, go visit Alex and the gang at SWFL Golf Carts. flgolfcarts.com online. Check out their whole inventory. If you're looking for a custom cart, they can take care of you. 2-seater, 4-seater, 6-seater, they've got you covered. E-bikes, nobody better for value and service. E-motorcycles, check them out. Again, flgolfcarts.com. flgolfcarts.com.
Golfers, are you bored of the same old driving range warm-up routine that's not getting you the results that you want on the course? Power up your golf swing by adding resistance bands to your range sessions with the Orange Whip Golf's Power Strap Kit. Featuring band attachments to your feet and hips, Power Strap resistance training will boost club head speed, increase power, improve flexibility, all with just a few swings. Buy a Power Strap Kit today. Go to orangewhipgolf.com and use code Miller10 to receive an additional 10% off the already great price of $119.
We did this before the pandemic, and now we're doing it again. The Miller and Moulton Fantasy Football Summit.
We want you to win your fantasy football league, so we've recruited an expert just for you.
Dr. Roto, who you hear regularly Thursdays on Miller and Moulton during the season, will give you his tips, advice, and insight just days before your fantasy draft.
In addition to that, you'll get food and drink and all of your questions answered.
You'll leave the Miller and Moulton Fantasy Football Summit with the Dr. Roto cheat sheet so that you can draft a great team and follow his award-winning insight throughout the season.
So if you want to win, we'll see you August 11th, Shoeless Joe's Sports Cafe for dinner, drinks, and the doctor. Dr. Roto, that is.
Go to floridasportsnetwork.com to sign up today. That's floridasportsnetwork.com for the Fantasy Football Summit.
Thursday, August 11th, 7 o'clock, Shoeless Joe's Sports Cafe.
You are listening to Miller and Moulton on the Florida Sports Network.
Well, Logic Man, I'll say this. Two things that this Phillies team would have going for them that those two teams didn't. You got 6 playoff teams now, so a better chance of getting in the playoffs now. The other thing is they got 2 really good starters in Wheeler and Nola, and there's talk they're trying to get a third starter for simply what you're alluding to. First round playoff series is a best of 3. Then it would be best of 5, then best of 7. Yeah, all risks. They could be interesting. You know what's interesting? They could also miss the playoffs. They're a game ahead of the Cardinals. And what if the Cardinals get Soto?
And the Cardinals are going to be playing the Reds, Pirates, and
Cubs.
A hell of a lot. I say advantage Cardinals for that spot just on that alone. Second best team in a bad 5-team division as opposed to being the third best team in a better division.
I mean, it's doable. There's no doubt about it. I mean, you're one of the 7 best teams in the National League for sure. There's no doubt. Segura, Harper.
You are listening to Miller and Moulton, exclusively on the Florida Sports Network. And now here's Mark Miller and David Moulton.
It is the bonus hour of Miller and Moulton on this first day of August. Hope you had a good weekend and a good month for that matter. And thanks for starting your week and your month off with us. Miller and Moulton, the Florida Sports Network, floridasportsnetwork.com. The big news, Deshaun Watson's suspension is 6 games. 6 games. It means his first game would be week 7 in Baltimore against the Ravens. It means his first home game in Cleveland would be Halloween night. Insert line here, comma, Monday Night Football against Joe Burrow and the Bengals. We'll wait to see if the league is going to appeal. Mark, I'm going to make a prediction. They appeal. They move the suspension to 8.
Well, it's funny you say that because, the thing I keep thinking about is, and I know they don't care about these things, but as you just mentioned, what are the first 2 games when he comes back? The Ravens and the Bengals. The only division game the Browns would then play is a Thursday night game hosting Pittsburgh, because they have everybody again on the back half of their schedule as well. Part of me thinks that they're going to add the 2 games. One, it would mean all division teams only, he only gets to play against each team in his division once.
Although for the conspiracy theorists out there that think the league is biased towards the Steelers, which they have rendered decisions in which certain people would have those feelings, all right, it would be, would be interesting if the only game that Deshaun Watson in the division didn't play against was Pittsburgh, and it made sure that both Baltimore and Cincinnati got to face Deshaun Watson twice.
It's a dadgum good point. It's a dadgum good point, David. But there's just part of me that thinks the way the schedule's set up that 8, everybody in the division, then he misses 1 game against. I can't believe that the league is not going to appeal this. And as we've said, the moment they appeal, that means that the suspension's growing. Just by how much?
I think they're going to appeal, and they're going to not want to create war. And I think if they go to 8, that first off, in the back of their mind, if the reports that we heard late yesterday were true, Mark, that the 2 sides were negotiating a settlement last week, and Deshaun was willing to go 6 to 8, and the league was willing to drop it down to 12 with a big fine, historic fine. So then if that's the case, if you're the league and you've already brought it down to 12 and he was willing to go to 8, don't you then take it to 8 and you go, while this is quote unquote unprecedented in terms of a code of conduct violation, which has normally been 6, they basically could come out, Mark, and say, we believe the women. We did our own investigation. We talked to a bunch of women, and quite frankly, we think that there's a little bit more to a code of conduct here. And so that's why we're throwing on 2 extra games, which also keeps his debut off Monday Night Football. And if you don't think the league cares about optics, you are living in an alternate universe. All right. Do you really think they want Deshaun Watson's home debut on Monday Night Football on Halloween night? How awkward is it going to look when he gets an ovation? No, I don't think the league wants that. I really don't. And I think the league cares desperately about optics. The other thing is, if they give him 8, he can't practice while he's suspended. When does he return? Bye week. He can show up at the team headquarters November 1st, the very next day after the Monday night game, and he can practice for 2 weeks and get ready for, where's his first game? in Miami, which is already sold out, by the way. That's the other thing that came about over the weekend. A lot of excitement with the Dolphins. Season tickets are sold out. First time in team history, they're going to have a season ticket waiting list, Mark. So at least from a season ticket point, they're sold out. I'm sure there's, GAs that are available, but basically the indication over the weekend was, Mark, you're not going to be able to get a ticket for a Dolphins game this year.
Good. About time.
Yeah.
For those of you wondering who the games that the Browns will have Jacoby Brissett as a starter, they open at Carolina. Then they host the Jets. Then they host the Steelers. At Atlanta, home for the Chargers, home for the Patriots. Those are the first 6. What do you think Jacoby Brissett does in the 6 games? 6 or 8?
All right. Well, first off, let's be honest. They're going to lose week 1 at Carolina, even though Carolina is the inferior team, because the football gods are going to give Baker Mayfield a gift. So, I mean, come on. We know that's coming. Come on. It's too good. Carolina could go 2-15 this year. One of the two's got to be week 1 against Cleveland, right? It's just too rich. Christian McCaffrey's healthy. We don't know if he'll be healthy for any of the other 16 games. He'll be healthy for that one. So, all right. So they lose to Carolina because, well, the football gods will make it so. Now what else we got?
Home for the Jets.
They'll beat the Jets.
Home for the Steelers on a Thursday.
Boy. If I'm a Steelers fan, I'm a little concerned. Did you hear what the offensive coordinator came out and said over the weekend? That Mason Rudolph has a really good chance to win the starting job?
Well, they booed Trubisky at camp.
In July.
Yes.
In July.
Yep.
Right. Okay. Just.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Once again, I'm picking them last in the division, ladies and gentlemen, even with Jacoby Brissett.
You're picking
All right.
Cleveland last?
No,
you pick
Pittsburgh last.
Okay.
Pittsburgh last.
So you have Cleveland at 2-1 then if they're beating the Jets and Steelers.
Well, I'm hemming and hawing on Pittsburgh. Let me just roll this along.
At Atlanta.
They're terrible.
Another game that they can win. That's a bad
Right.
football team.
I know.
Home for the Chargers. They'll lose that game.
I mean, think about it. Carolina, the Jets, and the Falcons. The league did them a solid here.
Right. Home for the Chargers and the Patriots. Back-to-back weeks.
If you're a Browns fan, I give you 3-3. You sign up right now?
Absolutely. But there's a shot that you could do a hell of a lot better.
I know. That's why I asked. Will you sign up for 3-3 or will you take your chances?
I'd probably take my chances.
Okay. I'd sign up for it.
I know you would, but I'm seeing Panthers and Jets and Steelers and Falcons and Patriots.
Well, I will say, I mean, both of us, Steelers and Patriots, were playoff teams a year ago. Neither one of us thinks they will be playoff teams this year. Patriots just paid their punter, by the way. It made him one of the highest paid punters in the NFL.
Well, they're going to use him.
Belichick's raving about Mac Jones.
He is.
He doesn't usually do that.
About his growth from last year to this year. And
I hope he's right. He's bigger, stronger. Kind of sounds like the $6 million man, faster than he ever was before. Got to be a certain age. That's a pretty good reference if you're a certain age.
I was thinking it. I decided not to go with reference. We did get a poll question up. I went Goldilocks for this one. Too much, too little, just right.
Nice.
The Deshaun Watson suspension. Too few games, too many games, or just right. Go to that Mark Miller, FLSportsNetwork.com. The David Moulton in a couple of minutes whenever he retweets it.
You know what? I'll get to it right now.
I'm sure you will. I'm not too worried about it. But that's our poll question for today. We kind of waited knowing the suspension was coming out. It did come out about a half hour earlier than they had talked about 8:30. We finally got word. But early voting right now, too few is getting the majority of the votes. No one's saying it was too many. But 2/3 of you saying it was too few games. Early voting. Go to that Mark Miller, the David Moulton, FL Sports Network and FloridaSportsNetwork.com to vote on today's poll question regarding Deshaun Watson and his suspension by the league. 6 games handed out by Judge Robinson. Whether or not the league appeals, we will find out later today on the appeal process from the league. That is simply a case of them extending the suspension. If there's an appeal, it's going to be more games. It's that simple.
Well, yeah, why appeal? Well, why are you're the league, you're the ultimate arbiter in this. If you're saying I'm appealing, you're saying, yeah, we're adding games to this. It's just a matter of how many. And then the question really becomes, does Raj want to go to war with the Players Association?
And the second question is, were Stefanski and the Browns liars? And because it's now 6 games, and if it's appealed, do they start going after Jimmy G by noon?
Boy, I got to tell you, you could sign Jimmy G. He could play the first 6 games, and then you can trade him because you haven't reached the deadline yet. Just throwing that out there. I mean, what's Jacoby Brissett ever done? Jimmy G's gone to a couple of NFC Championship games at least on a team that plays a similar style of ball as the one you're playing. But I digress. Mark, another reason why, in all seriousness, why I think Goodell's going to appeal is I do think Goodell wants to make the league look better in the eyes of a group of fans that the league has been courting for a long time, the female fan. And I think the league wants to say to the women who are fans of the NFL, okay, you know, hey, we're on your side here. More, you know, we're willing to do something that we've never done before, which is take a penalty and add to it.
And with the Kraft case, with the Snyder case, there have been a lot of things that does not make this league look good to its female fans. This is an opportunity to change the narrative. It doesn't change what happened in other cases. It doesn't change the way in which they've acted in the past, but it changed the narrative going forward. And I agree with you, David. That's a strong point for the league right now. They have been doing everything they can to court their female fan, and this would further that courtship with them. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Today was a day when, still all ahead on Miller and Moulton. Thanks for listening right here on the Florida Sports Network.
Golfers, are you bored of the same old driving range warm-up routine that's not getting you the results that you want on the course? Power up your golf swing by adding resistance bands to your range sessions with the Orange Whip Golf's Power Strap Kit. Featuring band attachments to your feet and hips, Power Strap resistance training will boost club head speed, increase power, improve flexibility, all with just a few swings. Buy a Power Strap Kit today. Go to orangewhipgolf.com and use code Miller10 to receive an additional 10% off the already great price of $119.
David Moulton for Napa Auto Parts, and Napa Filters. Insist on Napa filters for your vehicles, or if you're a do-it-yourselfer, only buy Napa filters. Napa has a filter for almost anything on earth that moves, whether it's motorcycles, foreign and domestic cars, vans, SUVs, earth-moving equipment. You get the idea. Napa Auto Parts, Napa filters. Insist on them for your vehicles, or if you're a do-it-yourselfer, only buy Napa filters.
Bring your big mouth to John Smith Subs and indulge in their overstuffed subs with the freshest quality ingredients. Enjoy our famous steak bomb with perfectly grilled marinated sirloin steak topped with provolone cheese, grilled onions, peppers, mushrooms, crispy bacon, juicy tomatoes, and creamy mayo. Boom! Made-to-order crispy fries can be paired with the Gator, the Cuban, the chicken bomb, or the Italian. Love local. Eat delicious with John Smith Subs. Find a John Smith Subs location near you today.
Mark Miller for SWFL Golf Carts, or online, flgolfcarts.com. If you're looking for a golf cart, an e-bike, or an e-motorcycle, go visit Alex and the gang at SWFL Golf Carts. flgolfcarts.com online. Check out their whole inventory. If you're looking for a custom cart, they can take care of you. 2-seater, 4-seater, 6-seater, they've got you covered. E-bikes, nobody better for value and service. E-motorcycles, check them out. Again, flgolfcarts.com, flgolfcarts.com.
You are listening to Miller and Moulton on the Florida Sports Network.
Deep Palkowitz there, I got to be honest, I didn't even see Philly. I must have been. I think I was looking at the Twitch chat room, and so I'm assuming he popped in. I didn't even see it.
Thank God, I was confused, or I was disappointed. I was like, oh no, he's not having this right now.
To Miller and Moulton fan, what time is the game on that day? If you know that, what I have found is I-20. Are you going east to west? But either way, it's really an hour or so before kickoff and an hour or so after the game ends. That's really when I-20 is a problem. So if you can pass through Tuscaloosa 2 hours before kickoff or 2 hours after the game ends, you should be okay.
Philly, do you just wait for me to get up to run in here and get in front of the camera?
Absolutely. I mean, that's what you got to do, you know.
I
No.
appreciate his honesty. It's kind of like the LIV golfer saying, "Why are you here?" For the money.
For the money, yeah.
I'm going to start unplugging the camera every time I leave.
Well, the other thing, Deadstrick, there about I-75 is remarkably, for whatever reason, damn near the entire length from Chattanooga to Knoxville until you get to within like 10 miles of Knoxville is 2 effing lanes. What the heck were they thinking? It's only when you get about 10, 15 minutes from the stadium does it go.
That's right when 40 comes in, right?
Yeah, pretty
when
close
the highways
to it.
connect, basically.
Yeah, and it's like
that town's never in my life and all my trips up back and forth from Florida or Georgia to Michigan have I not run into traffic in and around Knoxville. It doesn't matter what time of day either.
Well, and also there's a couple of patches when you're heading north. There's a couple of unbelievable fog areas on that road that have caused so many bad accidents. So that slows your traffic down.
Well, then the first thing you get to is you got a big speed trap too, right outside of Chattanooga. Cleveland, Tennessee is a flat out speed trap.
Yep.
At least it was. I've not been driving the way that I used to, but that was always, they always were out to get you. Northport, Cleveland, Tennessee, there's just a few spots out there.
Yeah, you got to pay attention to that in the South because, a lot of these southern towns are smaller and the roads leading in are like a lot of 2-lane roads because outside of 7 home games a year, they don't need a third lane.
No.
I don't think a dime, Canada Relief. I don't think a dime.
How do you win like a couple shekels from that?
Getting numbers.
So if I get one number, I win something?
No, 2 numbers.
You have to have 2.
Okay.
If you have 4, I think you won $1 million.
Whoa.
Of which there were 6 sold in Florida.
So. By the way, apparently, if you took the lump sum, it was like $470. But if you take the 29 years, equal payment for 29 years, you get like $750, $760 out of the deal.
If someone from Nevada had won it, they would have won all $1 billion, right?
Why?
Isn't there like not a winning tax on?
Well, there's not a state tax, but you got to pay federal taxes on it.
All right, we're coming back.
You're listening to Miller and Moulton, exclusively on the Florida Sports Network.
21 minutes past the hour. Miller and Moulton, Florida Sports Network, floridasportsnetwork.com. Thanks so much for being with us. Our poll question, Deshaun Watson's penalty was handed down, in case you missed it, 6 games by Judge Sue Robinson. The NFL can appeal. No word on if they will.
Right.
No word on if they will today. But Mark went the too hot, too cold, just right route. Whether or not and apparently nobody thinks that, at least nobody who's voted. A few people have commented, texting and in their Twitch chat room over the weeks and months, that they didn't think he should get anything. But so far, no one has voted that way in our poll question, that they think the 6 games was too few. People are either voting that they like their porridge just right, or that, they wanted more. So
I'm surprised that it's 6 games. I probably shouldn't be, because code of conduct penalties, that's what they are. I mean, there is a lot of precedent for the 6-game suspension with code of conduct penalty. That's the route that Judge Robinson decided to go with this. Now we just await the league's appeal, and then it gets taken to 8 games or 17 games. I mean, that, right, David? I mean, I don't think it would go from 6 to 12.
I think that's the max. If based on the reporting that we got last night, that if they were actually in discussions for a settlement, the league came down to 12. If that's apparently, Mark, think about this. If that's apparently the fewest number of games that Goodell could stomach, wouldn't he then in turn, now that he has a chance to make the suspension what he wants, you could see in which he'd say, yeah, I'm just going to double this sucker. I think it's ridiculous.
Yeah, somehow I've got in my head it either goes to 8 or 17, David. I don't think that there's a middle ground anymore.
Ooh, man, I'd max out a credit card for it to be 17. Just for the reaction, just to see what could happen.
Well, and that's the thing right now. I mean, all you have to do is go to Twitter to see 40 different reactions to this. People already giving shots at Goodell. Goodell had nothing to do with this part of the suspension.
Yeah,
I mean that is the part of this that I find hysterical. Is that people that I like, people that I think are pretty smart, is like, oh, Roger Goodell just spins the roulette wheel to determine what suspensions are. Roger Goodell didn't do this.
No.
Where has your head been buried for the last couple of weeks?
What part of the Judge Sue Robinson rendered the verdict are you missing? Now, what he does from here, that's Goodell and the wheel of justice. Yes. Including if he decides to just accept the 6 games. He could just come out and go, got to admit, don't like it, hate it. In fact, think it was wrong. Respect the judge, but think she screwed up. All right. But the fact of the matter is that, we do business a certain way and code of conduct, and, got to live by it. But I'm not happy about it. Maybe that's how he tries to appease the people that he thinks he has to appease.
And back to what you said last segment, though, David, I do think there is some there in that, between what's going on with the Washington football franchise, the Commanders, and Snyder and their owner, and the way that they have apparently treated women for a long time, with Robert Kraft's arrest at a rub and tug that went away. They've not looked good in the eyes of their female fans and female reporters that cover the sport. I do think there's some there to what you're saying, David, that the commissioner comes back and adds a couple of games to at least give the impression to the female fan that they care more about them than Judge Robinson did.
Also, I mean, we're kind of going off the top of our head here, but we pay pretty close attention because it's our job. I don't recall Goodell adding games to a penalty. So if he were to add even 2 games, he could look someone in the eye who questions him and goes, come on, 8's not enough, and go, we just took unprecedented action here. I've never done this before. All right. That's how strongly that, I found his actions to be and what have you. I added games to a penalty that a federal judge had rendered a verdict on. You don't think I'm taking this seriously? I mean, he could do that, whether, he wins the court of public opinion or not.
And I don't know, I don't know what court of public opinions he's ever going to win.
The people who buy merchandise, that's all he's trying to win. People who watch games, buy the ticket, and buy the pink stuff in the month of October.
Well, then he's already winning because everybody's still buying stuff as fast as they can. There's no lack of purchasing going on for NFL fans right now. But just early judging is that people are all over the place with this. They're all over the map. They think it's too less of a suspension. Literally on our show today, he shouldn't get a game. Innocent until proven guilty. He should get a year. That's the variance in which these texts come. And I don't think that our audience is any different than anyone in the country.
Well, remember, if reports are to be believed, the NFL, before Judge Robinson, asked for suspended for the year with the ability to add on to it in 2023, depending on what they hear in the civil cases in the early part of 2023.
And now, the look of it is the civil cases, 3 of 4 went away. I mean, would you bet that the other one's going to go away before it goes to trial? I would.
I would as well, but we have joked over the years about how stubborn the two of us are and how, we could do things that a lot of people wouldn't do. I can respect the one person that goes, yeah, I want my day in court. I want everyone to hear what he did. I want people to know.
It just must show you how big the money is on those 3 cases, by the way. No, because, David, they were all going to court. They all wanted their moment.
Right.
And
we're
the
not
payoff
part of the
kept getting
original
bigger
20.
and bigger and bigger and
Sure.
bigger. And there becomes a point in which you say, apparently, where you just suck it up and say, I'm taking the money.
Well, it's kind of like joining the LIV, Mark. At some point, everybody's got a price, right?
Absolutely.
But who knows? Maybe this one woman is Rory McIlroy, and there's no way. No amount of money. Okay, I respect that. I do. Good luck. But 6 games. Too few, too many, just right. That's our poll question. At that Mark Miller, at the David Moulton on Twitter, at FL Sports Network on Twitter, and at floridasportsnetwork.com to vote. The Deshaun Watson penalty has been rendered. The NFL can appeal. We think they will. And we think that the minute they appeal, it is a statement to say that they are adding on to the penalty, which in and of itself, we believe will be historic.
6 games. If they add on to the penalty, it's something they've not done before. To me, it's very simple. He would add 2 games onto the suspension to make it 8, or he adds 11 and he does the whole year. I don't think there's a lot of middle ground that will happen as far as the suspension goes, but we shall see about all of that. It'll be a hell of a day, to say the least. I think the appeal will be filed by the end of the day, and we'll know that we're going to add on to the suspension. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Today was a day when and what's on tap. All still ahead. We thank you so much for listening on a Monday as we've made it to August. The magic numbers, well, they are counting down quickly. And you're listening to Miller and Moulton right here on the Florida Sports Network. Golfers,
Are you bored of the same old driving range warm-up routine that's not getting you the results that you want on the course? Power up your golf swing by adding resistance bands to your range sessions with the Orange Whip Golf's Power Strap Kit. Featuring band attachments to your feet and hips, Power Strap resistance training will boost club head speed, increase power, improve flexibility, all with just a few swings. Buy a Power Strap Kit today. Go to orangewhipgolf.com and use code Miller10 to receive an additional 10% off the already great price of $119.
We did this before the pandemic, and now we're doing it again. The Miller and Moulton Fantasy Football Summit.
We want you to win your fantasy football league, so we've recruited an expert just for you.
Dr. Roto, who you hear regularly Thursdays on Miller and Moulton during the season, will give you his tips, advice, and insight just days before your fantasy draft.
In addition to that, you'll get food and drink and all of your questions answered. You'll leave the Miller and Moulton Fantasy Football Summit with the Dr. Roto cheat sheet so that you can draft a great team and follow his award-winning insight throughout the season.
So if you want to win, we'll see you August 11th, Shoeless Joe's Sports Cafe for dinner, drinks, and the doctor. Dr. Roto, that is.
Go to floridasportsnetwork.com to sign up today. That's floridasportsnetwork.com for the Fantasy Football Summit.
Thursday, August 11th, 7 o'clock, Shoeless Joe's Sports Cafe. David Moulton for Napa, Napa Auto Parts, and Napa Filters. Insist on Napa filters for your vehicles, or if you're a do-it-yourselfer, only buy Napa filters. Napa has a filter for almost anything on earth that moves, whether it's motorcycles, foreign and domestic cars, vans, SUVs, earth-moving equipment. You get the idea. Napa Auto Parts, Napa filters. Insist on them for your vehicles, or if you're do-it-yourselfer, only buy Napa filters.
You were listening to Miller and Moulton on the Florida Sports Network.
You got Wilbon out of bed early for this one. No, I don't. Canada. It's certainly not football Canada Relief. He doesn't look at anybody but their own league. Every time I see WNBA scores and I see Liberty, I think of Liberty University.
ASUN Conference.
Yeah.
Liberty University. Malik Willis. By the way.
Yeah, Bauer was suspended for, 2 years or whatever. I mean, he basically got blackballed.
If, God forbid, something happens to Ryan Tannehill, I think Malik Willis will make noise in Tennessee.
No.
I feel like we don't talk about him enough.
Malik Willis.
It's because he went
There's
to Liberty.
32 quarterbacks that start in the league. There is no reason to talk about any of them who are not starting.
I mean,
No. There's no, if we're doing a show in Nashville, then we'd be breaking down whether or not he can be a backup. Do we talk about Kyle Trask on this show that much? Well, no, I mean,
well, he's the successor to Brady. I mean,
no, actually, he's not, because he's the number 3 quarterback. The only thing we talk about is that he's not, because they haven't even named him the number 2 guy yet.
right. It's
So Malik
Gabbert.
Willis has got to at least be the 2 before you can talk about him playing.
Well, then who's the 2 in Tennessee?
I don't know the answer to that, but I don't think it's him.
Well, what we've heard from Pat is that Goodell in the NFL tries desperately to avoid looking like other leagues. Yeah, Bauer was suspended 2 years.
What? Gardner Minshew was in Bonita Springs all summer?
Apparently I know they said he was living in a bus, but I didn't realize it was in Bonita. Huh.
A bus?
He's an interesting dude.
Yeah, he is.
Canada Relief, are you really just stumbling upon that Jordan gambling thing for the first time?
Thank you, Ryan. I looked it up. I just didn't have a chance to share. Logan White Woodside is the Titans backup. Logan Woodside.
Who? Yeah, Canada Relief. I knew about that. I wasn't even alive for that. Ross Chastain went the wrong way.
Yeah, he went on the wrong road.
Oh man.
He got forced. He got forced out.
Oh man. I did not watch any sports this weekend, unfortunately.
I didn't watch much. I watched a little golf yesterday.
I was moving out.
You get everything in?
Yeah, all my stuff's in my friend's garage right now, and I'm.
Oh, so you got to do it after the show?
No, I don't. I don't move in till next Tuesday.
Why?
Because the place is stupid.
Yeah, he has to live with friends for like 8-9 days.
Well, my friend who has a dog is living in my friend's, like the garage that we're using. He's living in his room, and then I'm staying in a hotel.
You're staying in a hotel?
Yeah, sucks. But free breakfast. I'll be there. Kid free breakfast after the show. Not bad.
You're listening to Miller and Moulton, exclusively on the Florida Sports Network.
22 minutes until the top of the hour. That's when we're officially out of here. Miller and Moulton, the Florida Sports Network. FloridaSportsNetwork.com. Deshaun Watson gets a 6-game suspension from arbiter Sue Robinson, a federal judge, a retired federal judge. We're waiting for if the NFL appeals, they have the right to, and then they have the power to render the final verdict on this case. We have joked for a long time that this entire process before Judge Sue Robinson was, I don't want to say an exercise in futility, but it was just the opening act.
Right, procedural. I mean, would almost be the way you would describe it.
Right. And so, we'll see if Goodell decides, I can't live with 6 games. Is it possible, Mark, that Goodell sits back for 48 hours? Because he has to, within 3 days, I believe, appeal. Is it possible he sits back and sees what people's reaction is? Or do you think that doesn't matter to him? He's hell-bent on, he's going to add games to this. And, I'm the hammer, doing things my way. The hell with all of you.
Put it this way. If he's listening to reaction, David, to me, it's not necessarily from the sports world. It's from a little bit on the outside. How much is this making the NFL look badly? I don't think he's going to look at an ESPN report and go, well, the talking heads at ESPN don't like it. I've got to change it. 10 women's groups come out today and they're against it. That would be, to me, more impactful to the commissioner than anything that's said on any of the shows that that we're all going to consume for the rest of our day.
What is fascinating, though, is that who are you? And Mark, we've already seen it in our Twitch chat room. You've seen it on the text line that people are lashing out at the NFL. The NFL did not render this verdict. A retired female federal judge did. I mean, there's a lot of things to yell at the NFL about, but you can't yell at them about this. Not yet.
Not yet.
Now, if they don't appeal it, when they have the power to add more games to it and that bothers you, then okay, you can lash out at them. But But you could see, Mark, if in the first 24 to 48 hours, the NFL is getting a lot of negative publicity and it's going, hell, we didn't even do this and we're getting bashed.
Bingo.
Then
So
that could, be like, well, then hell, we got to do something.
right, we got to make ourselves look good. And how do we look good? We add on to this suspension. I think the appeal will happen today. I think the appeal will happen before noon.
Is this like Jay Monahan, the PGA Tour commissioner? He waited till the PGA Tour players who joined the LIV teed off in London, but pretty much before they were putting on their first greens, he suspended everybody.
Wouldn't it all be surprised if the appeal was already typed out and sitting on Raj's desk for him to sign this morning, if you know what I mean?
Has the judge done her presser yet? Or has she officially released it?
Not that I have seen. I mean, everybody's
Okay.
reporting on it, but they've not cut to her. I've not put any, I've not seen a screen with a comment from her. So
I'm guessing, by the way, she doesn't do a presser. I'm guessing she just releases a statement.
But we have not gotten that. We've not really had, to my knowledge, I don't even know if this is official. This is just Schefter reporting and everybody's pretty much gone with it.
Yeah, but we all know who Schefter's getting this from. So
The league.
Yeah, and or Deshaun's people.
Right.
So, his sources are pretty good.
They're excellent.
Even if you don't like the guy, his sources are pretty good. He doesn't get a lot wrong. He's rendered opinions about things which have got him in trouble, but his reporting is rarely mistaken.
Time now for...
It's time for someone to take back this segment, if for no other reason than to stop David from talking about Meghan and Harry. Here's Mark Miller with Today Was the Day When.
1781, David. Cornwallis surrenders at Yorktown. That's kind of a biggie.
It really was. It really was.
1907, the Bank of Italy, which would later become Bank of America, opens its first branch in San Francisco. 1914, Emperor Wilhelm II of Germany declares war on his nephew, Nicholas II of Russia. You got to be really pissed off at your nephew if you're declaring war on him, David. Today in 32, the George Washington Quarter goes into circulation. The Summer Games in Berlin are open today in 1936. Today in 1963, Arthur Ashe becomes the first African-American tennis player to be named to the U.S. Davis Cup team. Today in 71, Harrison had his benefit concerts at Madison Square Garden, the concerts for Bangladesh that had like every great musician playing at them. But Richard Petty wins the Dixie 500 in Atlanta to become NASCAR's first driver with over $1 million in career earnings. Today in 73, the struggling Virginia Squires trade Julius Erving to the New York Nets for cash and George Carter, but mostly cash.
And 3 years later, the struggling New York Nets would trade him to the Philadelphia 76ers for largely cash.
Today in 1981, video officially killed the radio star. MTV debuts today, 1981. Today in 87, Tyson outpoints Tony Tucker to become the first to own all three belts simultaneously.
Yeah, Tucker got a lot of credit for going. He was the IBF champ, I believe, and Tyson had the two WBA and BC belts, and Tucker went the distance. He was taller, had a jab, was able to keep Tyson away. Tyson clearly won the fight, but I don't even think Tucker was knocked down in the fight.
Today in 88, Rush Limbaugh begins his national radio show. And today in 1996, George Martin publishes this novel called A Game of Thrones.
When Rush used to tell the story, he got off the plane in New York and he came to New York to do the syndicated thing from Sacramento. And he said, listen, I was a big deal in Sacramento. And the reporter said, how big of a deal? He said, I was a whale in a bathtub. That's how big I was. He goes, I get off the plane in New York. I'm expecting people to be like waiting for me. He goes, I didn't even have a ride to the syndicator. I had to haul a cab.
Welcome to New York.
Exactly. Welcome to the big time.
Those born today that are no longer with us, William Clark. You know, Lewis and Clark. Herman Melville wrote Moby Dick. Dom DeLuise, great actor. And Jerry Garcia, all born today. Those celebrating their birthdays. Chuck D is 62. I want to feel old. Chuck D is 62.
Wow.
Damn, man.
Yeah.
Chuck D's older than Brad Faxon, by the way, who's 61 years old today. Coolio is 59. Edger and James is 44. Madison Bumgarner, 33. And Austin Rivers is 30.
That is Hall of Famer Edger and James.
That's right.
The pride of Immokalee.
Miss anything? You got anything over there?
I got to be honest. I had the list in front of me. I lost the list.
Well, I feel good about that then. And Felipe's nowhere near a microphone, so I know I didn't lose anything there. That leads us seamlessly to...
You've heard folks elsewhere mock Florida is gonna Florida. Well, Mark Miller sees it differently. He calls it the good, the bad, and the ugly. What you got, Mark?
Whatever reason that Pedro Sanchez, the Prime Minister of Spain, did this, I'm for it. He did a presser and basically told the whole country to drop neckties. Enough of the shirt and tie. I think we already passed that with the pandemic, that the shirt and tie has pretty much gone away. But as someone who used to have to wear it for work in Florida, thank you for that. It does. It makes a little bit of sense. So good for you. For the bad, we go to Canada, where mounted police officers been under a little bit of discipline. Jonathan Pickett's has been suspended for a year after he was found passed out in his police-issued SUV at a Burger King drive-thru at 2:30 in the morning. No word on whether he was going with a Whopper or chicken sandwich. An employee tried to wake him up for 20 minutes before calling 911. About 3 in the morning, other police arrived and woke one of their own up, who's now facing a year suspension. And for the ugly, we go to Maine, where police are looking for a theft of a $700,000 Ferrari that was stolen from a hotel Sunday and then crashed and abandoned on Route 1 a short time later. The vehicle was found with its airbags deployed. The front end was pretty much totaled out. The car was stolen from a hotel around 10 p.m. The owner wanted the vehicle kept close to the building. The key was in a locked box, supposedly, and taken out for a little joyride, and no more Ferrari. And that is the good, the bad, and the ugly on today, August the 1st, 2022.
10 Major League Baseball games tonight. Marlins hosting the Reds. Final game they'll play before the trading deadline. You have to wonder if Kim Ang makes a major deal or two. The Marlins have pitching that everybody would want, and they desperately need hitting. The Rays, I believe, are off tonight. Yankees hosting Seattle. That's interesting because in theory, that could actually be like a second-round playoff series. Scherzer pitching against his former team, the Nats. By the way, DeGrom is going to make his season debut tomorrow for the Mets. And so, yes, they're lining Scherzer and DeGrom back-to-back in a rotation. And if you think about it, Mark, I mean, I know the Mets are in need of a few things and may do some shopping in the next 30 or so hours, but you could argue their trade deadline acquisition could be Jacob DeGrom.
This is where series are going to be important for teams starting to go forward, David. The Guardians have the Diamondbacks. They're fighting for a playoff spot in a division. They're a better team. You got to win 2 or 3. Twins are hosting the Tigers. Same thing. You know, Baltimore, are they going to try to be for real in the second half? They go to Texas. That's a series they have to win. The White Sox host the Royals. There are so many bad teams in baseball right now, David. We're just going to have to see which of these, quite frankly, average teams. Because none of the teams I mentioned are above. They're just barely above average, if you want to say that. But which average team is going to take advantage of the bad teams in the second half and earn themselves a playoff spot? That's why I like paying attention to some of these series when you get the average against the bad. Can they take care of business? Can they do what the Marlins were unable to do right before the break when they were sitting there a couple games below 500 and had a point in their schedule where they could go, hey, we can win 8 of 10 and get right back into this thing? They did not. Who's
All right.
going to be able to do that?
I'm going to put you on the spot then. You're running the Orioles. You're 3 out of the final playoff spot. You're 500. You trading Trey Mancini and saying, hey, this is cute, this is fun, but we're not a playoff team. We know it. But you know what? Next year we could be, and we're going to try to make our organization better for next year. What are you going to do?
I would not.
I'm
This
with
team
you.
has been bad for so long. I
Yep.
cannot do that to my fan base. They're starting to show up a little bit. They're starting to get excited about this team. We are way ahead of schedule. And here's the one thing you don't know, David. When you get way ahead of schedule, do you take 2 steps back next year? We've seen a million teams do it. You have to take advantage of the opportunities that are put in front of you. I would love to see Baltimore go out and acquire a player or two to try to make this.
What do you do? Could one game be a determining factor if you're the Red Sox GM? They're a game below 500. They're in Houston tonight with Evaldi pitching, who's one of their best pitchers, if not the best when healthy. If he beats Houston tonight in Houston and you get to 500 at the trade deadline, do you go, you know what? We're 3 games out. Okay, I'm not selling. But if you lose tonight, you're 2 games below 500, and you got to leapfrog 4 teams to make the final playoff spot. Do you turn around and go, hell with it. Let's sell a couple guys off.
Boy, I'll tell you what. I think one game could do it. I don't think the Red Sox can ever be a sell-off type team, although there's been a lot of talk of that. Astros are minus 190 tonight.
I know. With
With
Evaldi
Evaldi
on the hill. Right.
That might be my bet of the night, is take Boston tonight and just take a hunch on getting good odds with a good pitcher.
So 10 games in Major League Baseball tonight. Football on Thursday night for those of you that are jonesing for such a thing, the Hall of Fame game, the Raiders and the Jags. Don't forget our poll question.
Well, how can you? It's Deshaun Watson related. Too few, too many, just right. What do you think of the suspension? Go to that Mark Miller or the David Moulton, FL Sports Network on Twitter, floridasportsnetwork.com to vote on that. By the way, what would you do if you're the Red Sox?
Oh, I would sell. We're not any good, and we're not going to be a playoff team this year. And I got JD Martinez in the final year of a deal. I mean, listen, very quickly, Mark, if you're running the Red Sox, are you keeping these guys or not? I mean, honestly, if you're keeping JD Martinez, all right, if you're keeping Benintendi, well, then quite frankly, just sign him now. Okay, I don't get it. I mean, if you're keeping them or you're not. If the answer is we're likely not, then trade them.
That I agree with. I don't think they will. I agree with you that they should sell. I just don't think Boston will at the end of the day.
I do think this GM's different. He's
I know.
a Rays guy. Now, I got to admit, the Boston media and fans don't like him because he thinks differently than them. But because he got the job, and think about how he got the job, he told them this is how I'm going to do things. And obviously, John Henry and company agreed with it.
Safe travels back to the 239 tonight, David. Say hi to Mom for all of us, and we'll do this again side by side tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock. We thank you so much for listening to Miller and Moulton right here on the Florida Sports Network.
David Moulton for Napa Auto Parts, and Napa Filters. Insist on Napa Filters for your